Assalamualaikum. Apa khabar?
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Selamat datang ke rumah terbuka FUU UKM di tepi pantai. Tapi makan sendiri tau. Right. Assalamualaikum everyone. I will start using the English language now. Welcome to the last series of the online learning workshop. Today we'll be focusing on assessment actually. But I use the word examinations and tests in my posters so that it'll be more familiar lah for those who are in the disciplines of law, because usually in the disciplines of law when we talk about assessment, what comes to our mind usually is exams and tests and whatnot, right? But we will not be focusing only on exams and tests. We'll be also looking into other forms of assessment, especially taking into consideration now we have COVID, all right? And exam may not necessarily be an option that we can go for, all right? I mean traditional exam. Other types of exam could still be possible. I will be discussing this with you in the workshop. Okay, right, so today will be on assessment, but I would also like to inform to those of you, we noticed that the numbers of participants have ballooned up to 95 participants, up to the point that we have to actually decline new participants to join the workshop until last night. So taking into consideration, we have new participants who may not have attended the previous series of the workshop. I'm just going to go through simple housekeeping matters for the workshop. If you look at the bottom of your screen on the left side, you will see two buttons, the microphone button and the video cam button. So all throughout the workshop, please make sure that your microphone is muted. You see, we can hear somebody coughing now. It's Dr. Sonny. Okay, so mute your microphone, not because you are not supposed to ask any questions. We welcome all questions, all comments, and all sharings, but sometimes the noises from your surrounding areas will come into the virtual workshop area that it will disrupt the workshop. So just mute your microphone at all times. And video cam should be on for the first 15 minutes of the workshop, meaning now it's 10:33. So maybe up until 10:45, you should on your your video cam. Purpose is security, basically. We would like to prevent any hackers from entering into the workshop area. Apart from that, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you will see another button, which is the chat button. So you can use the chat button to ask any questions that you may have all throughout the workshop. And today, the team that's helping me is I have two of my staffs from the Faculty of Law's Office of Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. We have Cik Laili and also Puan Zatul. So maybe Zatul can just wave your hand a bit so that everybody can see you. Can you say hello, Zatul? Oh, Zatul. Zatul dengan Laili is having some problems. I think it's the Wi-Fi, UKM Wi-Fi. Assisting me apart from Zatul and Laili are not technical officers, so they will not be able to assist you if you have any technical problems. So if you have any technical problem, please approach two of my students. Okay, they are from the technical team from my class. We have Hanis Suraya. Hanis, can you just wave your hand a bit to everyone in the, just say hello.
Assalamualaikum, hello, good morning.
Thank you, Hanis. Okay, and we have Hasana. Hasana, where are you? Can you just say hello?
Hello, hi, Assalamualaikum.
Okay, this is Hasana. Hasana is my class monitor, second class monitor after Mio. I think those of you who attended my workshop a day before yesterday, I think you know Mio, right? Mio, Jijo, and Kusha was helping us out the other day. So today is Hasana and Hanis. So for technical matters, you may refer to Hanis and Hasana. Okay, I think Kak Zatul is back. Puan Zatul, can you just say hello? Unmute your mic and say hello to everyone. You can wave, yeah. So those are the people that you can approach if there's anything. What you need to do basically is just move your cursor to the person's video cam that's appearing on the screen. There will be a 3-dot button appearing on that person's video cam. You basically just need to click on that 3 button and you will see a pop-up coming out with options. You can choose the chat option and just ask questions or say whatever that you need to say to that particular person. Other than that, you may also say something in the Telegram group, okay? Because they will also be checking the Telegram group from time to time. So if you have any questions, anything that you want to say, you will say in the chat section. From time to time, I'll be asking Hasana to read the questions to me, and I will be answering the questions one by one. So this is how it's going to work throughout the workshops. At the bottom of the screen, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you also have another button with a smiley icon over there. It's called reactions. Let's try that for a while. Can everybody please just press a reaction for me? Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, I can see Prof. Ida. Kak Ida yang tanya banyak soalan tau, Kak Ida. Okay, all right. I think I've covered everything for the safety and security. Do not click any link that may appear in the chat section unless it's a link that that is coming from me or from any of the committee members. Okay. If there are no further questions pertaining to the housekeeping matters and also the safety announcement, I will now proceed to the workshop itself. As usual, for those of you who have attended the first, second, and third series of the workshop, I'll be starting with giving you the briefing on the workshop, and we'll be doing a need analysis. Okay, I'll be sharing the screen now. Okay. Hasan nampak tak saya punya screen? Boleh ke? Hasana? Hasana? Atau Hanis? Nampak tak saya punya screen?
Nampak doktor, nampak.
Nampak eh?
Ada
Alright.
nak.
So, sekejap ya. Okay. Nampak tak saya punya slide? Ke tak nampak? Tak nampak slide ya?
Tak nampak.
Okay, sekarang nampak tak?
Nampak dah.
Okay, alright. So, this is the title for today's workshop, how to conduct online exams and tests. Okay, introduction for workshop tips. Laptop is for Zoom. Smartphone is for app simulation, so you need both throughout the workshop. So for the purpose of this workshop only, you need two devices. One is your laptop, which is for Zoom, and another one is your smartphone. The smartphone basically is to put you in the shoes of the student. So basically when the students interact or participate in your class, online class activities, they will usually be using their smartphone. So that's why I need you to use your smartphone so that you may have a feel of how the students will experience when they participate in your online class. But if later on, if you do not have two devices, it's fine. Actually, you can use different windows. Okay, number two, the workshop is to enrich your options, but you don't have to use all the apps introduced. Ever since I've started the first series, many has been asking me questions on, do we have to use all the apps? Don't you have one particular app that could give us everything? That doesn't exist actually, because you have to know the apps and then you have to choose the apps according to your instructional design, as I have shared with you in the first workshop. Yeah? When you do your instructional design, when you use your ADDIE model, you start with analysis. Based on the need analysis that you have done, you will go into your design phase. When you go into your design phase, you will start to decide how you'll be teaching your class based on your findings in your need analysis. And that's where you decide which app is most suitable. There is no one app that could fit all law lecturers, because all lecturers have different approaches, different styles, and these approaches and style is underlined by the learning theory that you have chosen, because you think that learning theory will help you to achieve your learning outcome. Okay, so that is why we do not have one app that could give you everything. Okay, so my workshop is more like a buffet, as I was telling you in the previous workshops. I will give you lots of things, okay? It will be up to you to decide which one will suit you the best according to your need analysis. Number three, if you feel lost at any point in time in the workshop, you may still ask questions later in Telegram group, meaning you can ask questions during the workshop, but should anything come to your mind after the workshop has ended, what I do usually with my workshop alumni is I keep the Telegram group, so they can always ask me questions in the Telegram group, okay? And I'm in the process of preparing ebook that you may refer to, even if you even if the workshops have ended, you may still refer to my ebook. I will be giving the ebook to you perhaps by next week or next week. It takes me some time to actually prepare a more effective ebook. Apart from that, we also have video tutorials every time the workshop ends, I will basically convert the video in Zoom. Okay, and I will put it on my YouTube channel and I will give you the link. So if ever that you feel lost, just go back to the video and you can just repeat and watch the workshop all over again. Number 4 is a sharing session, not a teaching session. So I'll be mostly sharing what I have used in my class. And there will be times when I have answers to your questions because those tools are tools that I did use in my class and I use them frequently that I may have an answer. But sometimes there are tools which even though I use them in class, but I have never come across that kind of problem, or I do not use the function that you intend to use, even though I use the apps. So I may not have an answer to that question. I will open the discussion for anyone in the group to share if they have any answer. Otherwise, then we can explore this together lah, and we can discuss in the Telegram group. Okay, and I will also be sharing with you things which I do not use in class, or I do not use in class that frequently, but I'm aware of the existence of the apps or the function that may suit the instruction of law. So then I will also be sharing those apps with you. Okay, number 5. Another tip is basically you may also subscribe to my channel. It's not under my name, it's not Shahrul Mizan Ismail's YouTube channel, it's Dr. M's channel, because usually people would call me Dr. Mizan. So Dr. M's channel, just type Dr. M's channel and there are a lot of video tutorials inside there as well. How to use Zoom, how to use Sutori, how to use Padlet, so many things there. So basically you can just go to my YouTube channel. So this is the workshop tips for those of you who have not been attending the previous 3 workshops. Okay, so we go to the next slide. As usual, we will be continuing with workshop demographic survey and identifying purpose of the workshop so that I may proceed with the workshop in a more meaningful manner. So I will be sharing with you the code for Mentimeter. Hang on for a second, ya. Okay, Hanis nampak tak saya punya Mentimeter dekat screen?
Belum, dia tengah loading.
Oh, tengah loading.
Okay.
Dah keluar dah? Okay, so that's the class code.
Yes,
308583. Just enter the class code in your Mentimeter apps in your smartphone. All right. And we'll do a diagnostic assessment and need analysis. Okay, somebody has entered and given me a cat symbol. Oh, thank you, thank you. Love and cat and thumbs up. So if you're using Mentimeter for your own online class, you may also include these options. So students may interact with you by just pressing button thumbs up, love, cat. Okay, there are many other buttons that you can also include, but I'm just including these 3 basically. Okay, some of you asked me the question of the free account for Mentimeter only allows you to have 2 assessments. So it's okay, it's fine. I'm just explaining while waiting for more people to come into the Mentimeter class. Yeah. So I think the reason why is now that COVID is happening and most people are pushing their teaching and learning online, I think Mentimeter is now limiting the usage of their free accounts. I'm still using my free accounts, but my free account is so extensive because I was one of the earliest to use Mentimeter. So they said that they will maintain the functions for the earlier users lah. Perhaps because we were the ones who introduced this to everyone else, kan? Okay, so now I'll proceed to the first questions in the diagnostic assessment and analysis. Okay, this is a word cloud, so can you just one English word to describe the purpose of assessment? In your opinion, what is the one word that describes your assessment in your class? English word, yeah? Okay. Bigger words means more people are agreeing that is the answer for the question. So most of you are writing, most of you are choosing the word understanding. That's very, very good actually, because that's what, that is one of the purpose of assessment, understanding. Grading, yes, true, grading. Okay, evaluate and evaluation, I could see that. Performance, comprehension, yes. I'm quite happy with the fact that the word grading is smaller than the word understanding, because that somehow reflects what should be lah in terms of assessment. When you talk about assessment, sometimes more often than not, we have the tendency of looking at it only from the grading context, meaning when we look at assessment, oh, this is the mechanism for us to actually grade our students. That's actually one of the purpose, but the bigger and more primary purpose of assessment is actually understanding. That's why we have different types of assessment. I'm currently using one type of assessment actually. It's called Diagnostic Assessment, for me to understand the level of knowledge that my so-called students or the workshop participants have before I start giving my so-called lecture or deliver my class. So this is called Diagnostic Assessment. So assessment is not just about grading. In fact, most of the assessments that you do in your formative assessment and your diagnostic assessment sometimes do not even have any marks that could contribute to the grade of the students ultimately at the end of the semester. You may give them marks, but those marks do not directly contribute to the total marks of the students at the end of the semester. But we'll talk more about this soon. Okay, more people are still inserting their answers. So I'll move to the next question. Can you just share with me which among the following learning theories underpins your teaching approaches, styles, and method? If you're not familiar with any of these learning theories, you may just choose, I'm not familiar with any of the concepts. Anybody else? So I could see that as expected, actually I have expected this finding. Most of you are saying cognitivism. Yes, actually in law, I could see most of the time when I observe based on my own experience as a student, as a lecturer teaching in several IPTAs and IPTS, and also my experience as external examiners and assessors for several IPTAs on their curriculums and their teaching and learning styles. Most of the law instructors use cognitivism, but sometimes there is a confusion when you think that you are actually using cognitivism, but your cognitivism is actually behaviorism. But we'll talk more about this as we go into the content of the workshop. Okay, I could see 23 are not familiar with these concepts. Okay, and 7 chose connectivism and 9 constructivism. Okay, we'll talk more about this, but I could see the demographic. Okay. So we go to the next question. Okay, so most of you are familiar with formative and summative assessment. So in that case, I do not have to explain too much on the difference between these two things, but I will still be explaining, because sometimes based on my experience of conducting workshops with lecturers, what they understand to be formative and summative assessment is actually not what really are the definitions of formative and summative assessment, the concept, meaning it's not really accurate lah. Okay, so everyone is quite familiar with the cognitive domain in Bloom's taxonomy and also the holistic and analytic rubric for assessment. Not many knows about constructive alignment. Okay, never mind. So we can spend more time on that after this. All right, so next question. Since you state that you understand formative assessment, so what are the examples of formative assessments that you have done in class? Okay, we have one answer, quiz. Quiz. Okay, so most of you are choosing quiz. Okay. Problem-based learning. Okay. Oral and written presentations. Okay. Reverse role. Okay. MCQ. Okay. Quiz, MCQ. So most of you are choosing quiz and MCQ. Yeah? In that case, we can look into tools that gives you this function. Okay. Okay. All right. Problematic questions, legal opinion. Okay. All right. Never mind. We'll talk more about this soon. Okay, we go to the next one. Give examples of summative assessments that you have done in class. Case study. Midterm test. Case review. Okay, any other answers? So far only 48. I could see the same answers appearing in formative and summative assessment. This could happen, of course, sometimes, but I do hope that this does not confuse you between what is summative and what is formative assessment. Okay. Assignment. Forum. Okay. Never mind, there's no right or wrong answer at this point. It's basically just for me to gauge your familiarity. Okay, so we go to the next question. Okay, I'm not sure. No problem. We'll go into it after this. Analyze, percentage. There are actually many types of rubric for assessment, but the ones that are common, I think, in my opinion, based on my observation and my experience, the one that are common and mostly applied by law instructors, there are two actually. There are three, but I'm confining the discussion today for only two. The most common one, taking into consideration the time constraint that we have, kan? Okay. Yep, true. Holistic, and another one is analytic. Yeah, I could see some people are writing that. Holistic and analytic. There's another one that I think law instructors also like to use. It's called primary trait rubric assessment, but we won't go into that here in this workshop. If we have time, we'll do that. Okay. Okay, anybody else? Only 30 people have actually inserted their answers so far. Not sure, not sure. Okay, no problem. Not sure. In terms of rubric, actually, there are not many things that you have to change. If you are someone who has been using rubric even before COVID or even before you move into online teaching and learning, there's not much of things that you have to change in terms of your rubric. You just have to add things in so that to customize it to be suitable for online teaching and learning purposes. But I'm more concerned for those who have not been using rubrics at all, because I think in law schools, usually our emphasis is always on the answer scheme. You may disagree with me, but this is my personal opinion. Answer scheme is good, but I am usually more interested in the rubrics that lecturers use for their assessment, because the rubrics will ensure the consistency of the grades rather than the answer scheme. Plus, when you measure the students using the rubrics, you are not just measuring their cognitive knowledge. Sometimes you may insert other elements in the rubric as well. For example, their fluency, their language, their structure in answering the exam questions, for example. Because if you look at answer schemes, usually it's just answers, just the content, right? Okay, so I'll go now to the next question. Are you familiar with the concept of constructive alignment? Simple question, yes or no? Why do we have to go into all these theories today? Because assessment is one of the most important components in teaching and learning. And it is most of the time we view assessment, this is based on what I have observed. Most of the time we view assessment as independent of the teaching and learning that happens during the semester. Okay, we choose one teaching and learning theory, and then based on that theory, it should be synchronized to our approach. And from there, we choose our style, okay? And it should also be constructively aligned to our assessment. But what happens usually is this: you choose a TL, we call this teaching and learning, okay? But when you choose your assessment method does not align, is not aligned to your TL. I've had this experience. There's one colleague of mine last semester, she asked me this question. She said, Mizan, I actually used some of the because I taught them as well. So I used some of the things that you taught us is the constructivist approach, and I use role play in my class, she said, to teach. And assessment, but unfortunately, the students did not answer well in the exams. Well, it means that you choose a TL which is not constructively aligned to the assessment. So when you teach using role play, exam may not be the best assessment process. If you want exam is very cognitivism based assessment, then your TL should be cognitivism as well. You cannot use constructivism as your learning theory for your TL, but your learning theory for your assessment is different. So it has to be constructively aligned. Okay, so I could see that 48 are not familiar with the constructive alignment concept. Okay, we go to the next question. Okay, have you used the following apps or websites for the purpose of assessment? Some of the apps are quite familiar. I mean, general apps that everybody knows, but have you used them for the purpose of assessment? Not for class activities without marks, not for teaching and learning, but for the purpose of assessment. Okay. Oh, so most are actually using Google Docs and Google Drive for assessment, yeah? Is that for assignment or for like an open book exam? Oh, there's one actually use Padlet for assessment, yeah? Okay. Anybody else? So far, only 44 have answered. If you have not used any, then you don't have to enter any answer. Anybody else? Okay. So nobody has used exam.net before? Because I asked around and I heard that some has used, because some has actually gone to my YouTube channel. Okay, never mind. I'll be showing you exam.net today. I'll be showing you quizzes. There are 4 of you have used quizzes. I have been informed that in UAE you have had a workshop on quizzes, kan? Never mind. It will be a refresher course for those who are familiar. No problem at all. I myself also always go for refresher opportunities whenever I can get my hands on them. Okay, in e-portfolio, in Wix, nobody has used them. In Wix, Weebly, or Google Sites. Go Formative is actually more or less similar with quizzes. Padlet. Okay, so we go to the next question. Do you agree? Yes or no? Frankly, honestly. Wow, blue all the way. Yeah. Okay, so 45 have answered so far, and majority is saying that final exam is very important in the discipline of law. Okay. Okay. Anybody else would like to try? No? Okay, next question. So majority says final exam is very important. So I could understand the demographic of the participants for today's workshop. Okay, next one. Which among the following describe you as a law instructor in terms of assessment? Specifically in terms of final exam. You may not see the results now. Okay, the results will come out after everyone has actually given their answers. Okay, so far 51 have actually answered. Anybody else before I show the results? Okay, 60 have answered. Okay, I'll reveal the popular choice. Yeah. Then drum roll. Oh, why is the answer not the same with the previous question? So most of you are saying traditional final examinations is not that important and can be replaced with other methods of assessment. Okay, all right, thank you very much. So that's the end of our diagnostic assessment and need analysis. So we go to the next part of the content of the workshop, yeah? Okay, can you see my screen? Hasana nampak tak screen saya? workshop demographic survey and identifying purpose tu?
Nampak, Doktor.
Terima kasih Asana. Right, so we go to the next part in the workshop. Okay, the first thing that I need to make very clear, okay, I would like to clarify on this actually. The workshop that I have conducted, the 3 workshops that I've conducted and the one that I'm currently conducting is actually focusing on these 3 components or 3 contexts basically. For you to become an effective instructor, not necessarily just law instructor, but any instructor, okay, in in online learning, you need these 3 components basically, and you should, the best is when you have that central component over there where you have TPAC. TPAC means technological, pedagogical, and content knowledge. So at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm giving you the pink, this one over here, okay, the pink area, the dark pink area over here. I'm giving you technological and pedagogical knowledge. I'm giving you TPK because you already have your CK, your content knowledge, meaning your knowledge of the law that you specialize in. You're an expert, for example, in intellectual property, for example. Okay, maybe you have your content knowledge. If you are an expert in criminal law, for example, you have your content knowledge over here. So what I'm giving you in this workshop is basically the technological knowledge and the pedagogical knowledge. So for those of you who have attended my earlier workshops, my workshops will usually be divided into 2 major parts. The first is the theory, like what I'm doing now with you, the theoretical, the theories of the pedagogical theories that you should know, okay? And I will usually go to the technological knowledge, the tools, the apps, things that you should use for that learning theory, this approach, this method. So I'm giving you the dark pink area over here, the TPK, but once it's combined together with your content knowledge, you'll be getting this central, which is TPAC. So this is my aim for the course. And my learning outcomes for the workshops is not really for you to master all the apps. That's not my learning outcome. My learning outcome is just to introduce you. I noticed that after the workshop, some friends have posted, postings in their Facebooks. Pening, banyak apps. That's exactly the learning outcome that I was looking for. It is to make you pening actually, to overwhelm you with options, okay? Because the learning outcome is for you to know that there are options, that's all. And it will not be able, the workshops will not be able to make you a master of all the apps because that would require a different method of delivery, okay? But it will actually expose you to things that you have not been exposed to before. Okay, before this, I do not know that these apps exist. I do not know that we can use these apps for this function that suits the discipline of law. Now I know. But to really know how to use it, I would have to explore. So that's a different thing. Okay, so where we are is actually in the dark pink area. Okay, this is constructive alignment, and this is the first thing that we should be talking about here. Okay, constructive alignment means alignment between these 3 elements over here. Okay, if you are seeing black box at the bottom of my screen, it's because this is the taskbar for Zoom and my laptop is not the most high-tech laptop there is. So I'm using a simple laptop. So the graphic card is not that good, but I mean, it's not that good. So sometimes the black box may appear, you know, and also it's also caused by the internet connection. So you have to constructively align these 3 components. Firstly, what is your learning outcome? And this is very, very important because based on my observations of going to universities and colleges when I do my job as external assessors, I noticed that most of the lecturers would like to copy and paste or cut and paste or reproduce or parrot back the learning outcomes that they inherit from their predecessors. This usually happens most of the time in universities or colleges that have limited number of academics. So meaning they have lecturers teaching many subjects and the subjects that you teach change every semester. So what you do every time you get a new subject is you just inherit the learning outcome from your predecessor. This is very dangerous. So you really need to decide for this course that I'm getting for this semester, what are my learning outcomes? What are the outcomes that I want for my students to be able to achieve? That's the first thing. Once you have determined your learning outcomes, then you go to the second component, which is you have to decide your teaching and learning activities that should fit your learning outcomes. This is the general one. I'll show you the the more specific flow of this, where you include the theories, the approach, and the style as well. All right. So your teaching and learning activities should be constructively aligned to your learning outcome, and your assessment should be constructively aligned to your teaching and learning activities and your learning outcome. Remember the story that I told you just now about my friend in FUU who said that she uses role play, but then she uses exam as the method to actually measure the summative understanding of the student. So this is not constructively aligned. So when you do not have, when it's not constructively aligned, you'll notice that your students will not perform as how you want them to perform. And you will see that, oh, why are they still performing so badly even after I have done so many things in class? You know, because doing constructivism activities in class requires lots of time, lots of commitment and dedication from the instructor. You've done role play, you have done games, you have done this and that, and by the end of the day, when you have the final exam, your final exam is still 60%. And the questions that you ask are still constructively aligned to the Connectivism approach. So it's not constructively aligned with the T&L that you have done in your class. Okay, so this is the first thing that you should understand. Number two, okay, I'm sure everybody understands this, but it's just a matter of, you know, this is just a refresher maybe for most of you. Okay, so I will show you now the flow, yeah? Firstly, what is your intended learning outcome? You have to decide on that. Okay, do not just inherit, do not just copy and paste from previous semester. Your learning outcome should be different according to what you want to achieve for your students, okay? But having said this, of course, I would understand the dynamics and the uniqueness of each institution. Like for example, for us in UKM, it's very flexible and very fluid. You can always change whatever things that you want in your course, your method of assessment, your TL, everything can be changed every semester as long as you submit a document called the cost pro forma. So the cost pro forma should be submitted for that particular semester to the Deputy Dean's Office of Academic. So as long as you stick to your pro forma for that semester, it's fine. Let's say for this semester, I'm choosing to use online all out. Okay, then the pro forma will say that I will do that. But if let's say next semester, I don't think online learning is the way to go. So I change it to be blended learning instead. So I will change my pro forma accordingly. But I understand based on my visits and the workshops that I've conducted, I understand that some universities, they have quite stringent procedures when you want to do these changes, right? So this one depends on university lah. But the concept is like this. First, you have to decide on your learning outcome. Then, based on the learning outcome that you want to achieve, you must decide on your learning theories. There are basically 4 most basic learning theories. I won't go into all the more complicated ones. The 4 basic ones. Are you using behaviorism, cognitivism? Is it connectivism, or is it constructivism? Okay, you have to decide this. It's not just a matter of going into the class and I'm just going to lecture, I'm going to open my PowerPoint and that's it. No, you need to decide, okay, the learning outcome that I need for this class, it's a, for example, it's a compulsory moods class. You can't lecture all throughout because you won't, meaning you are choosing Cognitivism approach for subjects that require you to do Constructivism approach actually. Okay, so after you have decided on your learning theories, you should know your learning styles. Okay, your learning style goes back to Professor Fleming's Vat model. You have to determine your students, visual, oral, kinesthetic, reading and writing, so 4 categories. And you have to match them according to your learning theories. Okay, next one. Teaching and learning approaches, sorry, I forgot the S. So after you have decided on the styles, so based on the style, then you go to your approaches. Okay, say for example, most of your students are visual learners. So what would be the best method? Is it collaborative? Is it problem-based? Is it experiential? So the approaches should be mapped to your learning style and your learning theories. So I'm going through this because assessment is usually viewed as something independent and it's usually cut off from the flow. So from the learning approaches that you have decided, it should be you should decide your learning methods now. And when I say methods, you're talking about method of delivering your lecture. Actually, lecture is not the right term, but for the purpose of law workshops, I'm using something that is familiar to you. So your method in delivering lecture should match your learning approaches, your learning style, your learning theory, which by the end of the day will serve your learning outcome, which will serve the program outcome. Okay. I'm sure you have heard this so many times before, but I'm telling you as someone who has practiced this, and it works for me. So it can be done. That's my purpose. Okay. Tutorial activities, your methods in your tutorial activities should be mapped to the flow as well. And then your assessment. So when you talk about assessment, last week's workshop, assignment, your assignments, and test or exam. So this thing has to flow. So if this thing, your intended learning outcome is mapped to your learning theories, sorry, it's the other way around. Your learning theories is used to achieve the learning outcome, meaning it's there, okay? It's aligned, okay? Your learning style is aligned to your learning theory, so alignment is there. So your learning approaches is now aligned to your learning style, learning theories to achieve your learning outcome, so it's there, okay? And your learning methods should also be aligned to the process, so the alignment is there. And as a result, your methods, all of your methods in your lecturing, tutorial activities, and your assessment will also be aligned. So this is constructive alignment. This should be used for the purpose of your class. I never use the same types of assessment, not to say never, but I seldom use the same type of assessment in my class. For example, last semesters, I used e-portfolio because I have a great number of R students in my class, reading and writing type, okay? But for this class, I do not use that because they are mostly kinesthetic learners. So they need to feel the experience of learning to understand. So I use lots of simulations for my class this semester. Subject is the same, it's a procedure, but the methods of assessment differs according to the type of students that I have, because I have to, by the end of the day, choose a learning theory that could achieve the learning outcome. Okay, so this is constructive alignment. As you can see there, in the middle, you have the concepts, okay, content is knowledge, skills, and values. Then you are synchronizing between these three things over here that I've said just now. Your intended learning outcomes must be on the very top, and then the other two that should be aligned to the intended learning outcome is your TL and your assessment, formative and summative assessment. Okay, so we go to the next one. So this is basically the flow that I've shown you just now, okay? All right, from your learning outcomes of the curriculum to the assessment regime and your teaching and learning activities. We usually look at assessment as an end process. Oh, at the end of it, I'm going to do my assessment. Some lecturers do not even decide on their assessment up until the very end of the semester, which is not correct, because you have to decide on your assessment first. If, let's say, for example, I'm going to use this exam, and in my exam, I'm going to ask these questions. So your TL, you decide on your assessment first, your assessment regime first, then your TL should be mapped to your assessment regime. Because most of the time when I go for my visit, I notice that lecturers decide on their assessment. Okay, let's put something very general in the course outline or in the pro forma. Okay, at the end of the day, it's something that we can maneuver, you see. So you maneuver it at the end of your semester, and then when the students do not perform, you become very upset. Why is it that the students do not perform? I teach so many things. Okay, but maybe what you teach and your assessment regime do not match with each other. All right. Of course, there are other factors lah. I understand that, but this is usually the thing that I notice. Okay, and this is, we have to go a bit into this. Some of you are quite familiar based on the need analysis just now, but for those of you who are not familiar, I'm going into it a bit. Okay, let me just move my taskbar so that it doesn't disturb your view. Okay, all right. So there are basically 4 learning theories. The one that is quite conventional and traditional is behaviorism, but please bear in mind, there's nothing wrong with any of these theories, okay? Do not ever think that, oh, actually behaviorism is very bad, it's very traditional, so I'm not going to use it. No, it's actually not like that. It's, these are theories. Any theories can be used for the purpose of achieving learning outcomes. Good or bad depends on whether it can achieve your learning outcome. Even if it's traditional, for example, behaviorism, but if it can achieve the learning outcome for that particular subject, that kind of course that you teach, then it's good. Bad is when you use the wrong learning theory to achieve an outcome that could never come from the learning theory. That is not good. But other than that, it's all a theory on their own. Or you can even mix and match. Because for me, myself, my comfort zone is actually between behaviorism and constructivism. Sometimes I do use behaviorism because it requires me to use it. It depends on the nature of your student, the dynamic of your class, you yourself as an instructor, your preference, you know, the nature of the subject that you teach. Is it a procedural law? Is it a practical law paper? Is it a substantive law paper? Is it Sharia? Is it civil? So all these things must be taken into consideration. Okay, there are 4, yeah? So we go to the first one over there, it's behaviorism. Behaviorism is, as you can see, the methods are lecture, drill and practice, rote learning, and the assessments usually is multiple choice tests. This is very, very simplified version of behaviorism. Actually, if you read more on this, there are many other forms of assessment as well under behaviorism. But suffice to say, the summary here is that in behaviorism, the belief by Pavlov and Skinner, the belief is this: you basically teach the students by making them practice more. It's by repetition. Okay, you ask them to do the same thing again and again and again, and by that they learn that is the way how to do it. So that is behaviorism. And I sometimes use this myself, depending on the topic for my class. Some topics require me to ask them to do drill and practice until they will master that particular part of the course. Okay, so that's behaviorism. Cognitivism is when you use behaviorism thinkers and theorists basically say that there is no mind. The mind is not important in learning. It's the practice and the repetition that is important. The learning doesn't happen from the mind. It happens from the practice, from doing of the same thing. But cognitivism, on the other hand, basically means you still give lectures, but you are now encouraging the students to use their mind to think. It's not just a matter of repeating or following or doing the same thing over and over again to learn. They are using their mind to understand, looking at the overall picture. So you're lecturing them. Okay, there are basically 5 elements of contract, for example. I don't teach contract, so I remember them to be 5, I'm not sure. So there are 5 elements. So all the elements are this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for each element, you give them cases. So you make them understand the overall big picture rather than one small thing at a time and repeat the whole thing. So it's like, that is cognitivism. But the danger between these, confusing between these two is this, because I noticed that law, the discipline of law, has the tendency of making the lecturers feeling that they are doing cognitivism, but what they are doing is actually behaviorism. Okay, for example, it's like this. You give lecture. So lecture is in both methods, right? It's in both learning theories, behaviorism and cognitivism. But after the lecture, what you do is you go into your class and you give them a set of tutorial questions and you ask them questions and they answer. And you repeat the process every time, okay? And you repeat the process not just for every time in that semester, you repeat the process and the same question for every semester. So by the end of the day, what happens is the student will understand in this context. Okay, this lecturer is going to ask us this question. His tutorial is always about asking questions. These are the questions that he will ask. And they will ask their seniors, what are the answers? Then they will say, these are the answers. So it's not really them understanding what you are teaching, it's them repeating the process. So that looks on the surface superficially like cognitivism, but it's actually behaviorism. So by the end of the day, when you do assessment, you use exams. Exam is one of the methods in cognitivism, but your TL is actually behaviorism. So students will not reach your learning outcome. So do not confuse yourself between behaviorism and cognitivism. You want to know whether what you're doing is cognitivism or behaviorism? Ask yourself, are your students thinking, or are they just spelling out or just spewing out all the things that they have gotten from the friends from earlier tutorial? Maybe your tutorial is on Monday, is the first tutorial, your last tutorial is on Friday. The people from the Friday tutorial is basically just repeating and parroting back what they have learned from their colleagues or from their friends in the first tutorial. So that's behaviorism. So when you use tests and your exam as your assessment method, it will not reach the learning outcome because the TL is behaviorism, okay? Okay, let's go now to the orange section. Okay, connectivism and constructivism. Let's go to constructivism first. Constructivism is, it's very much student-centered. It means that you don't actually lecture them, but you ask them to experience the learning process. So you give them, for example, you give them problems to work on. You don't teach them, you basically just give them the problem. So they will discover the knowledge. You don't teach them, because teaching means you give them the knowledge. But now you don't give them the knowledge, you give them a learning experience. This is the problem. I want you to do it this way. This is the learning environment that I've created. Okay, like for example, for myself, I give them a problem. I created an email account for a client who will interact with them virtually. I created a virtual, a court counter for them to do filing. I created an office for them to work. So this is the environment that you will be in, and this is the problem that you have to solve. Okay, you will discover the knowledge as you go along during this process. Okay, so as they go along, they will do some mistakes. So into the mistakes, I will do them. This is scaffolding, meaning they do a mistake. I will tell them, okay, this is wrong. That's when I will step in and hold their hands and tell them, okay, this is wrong. I will guide them. And then I will take a step back. That is called scaffolding. You step in, assist. In constructivism, scaffolding is very important. You cannot just leave them. That one is not constructivism. That one is tak mengajarism. Okay, so you cannot just leave them on their own. You have to scaffold, meaning you have to step in, okay, and help whenever it is necessary. Otherwise, the learning happens on their own by discovery. Okay, so it's self-guided learning based on personal experience. Connectivism, on the other hand, to make it very simple for you, is actually digital learning. Though it's basically self-directed quest for content. The phrase quest for content accurately describes this process. So meaning, for example, you go into a class, say you're teaching constitutional law. There's issue now, right, about constitutional law, which I'm not going to go into. Okay, issues about Prime Minister and the powers of the YDPA and whatever not. Okay, so instead of giving them a lecture on YDPA and powers of Prime Ministers and whatever not, you just tell them, okay, this is the issue now. So what do you think? So they will go on a quest for content, and it's a self-directed quest for content. They'll go online, they go to Google, they go to YouTube, they watch the news, they read newspapers on the online. They perhaps they may call some lawyers outside, for example, or they may discuss with their friends in social media. So these are all sources of knowledge. Okay, we call these nodes of knowledge. So what they will basically do is, from all these sources, they will start to connect the dots together, and this is where they learn. So this is connectivism. So some subjects, you can use this. For example, jurisprudence, for example. You have an issue, okay, and you basically want them to discuss the issue. So what they do is, you don't necessarily have to teach them, because the nature of the subject doesn't require you to. Imagine, when I was in LLB degree, my lecturer who teaches me jurisprudence lecture on the concepts, and I am a kinesthetic learner, so lecture really doesn't help me. I had to do lots of things after the class. So instead of lecturing them, okay, this is hard, this is hops and whatnot, you basically just give them an issue. So go on a self-directed quest and find out. So that's connectivism. But we don't call ourselves teachers, you know. In 21st century learning, we call ourselves learning designers. So we, as the learning designers, we basically just design the environment for them. Okay, you can go on a self-directed quest for content, but you must submit to me a periodical progress notification, what you do, what you discover, for example. So we are designing the learning environment, for example. So these are the four four learning theories that we have to understand. Okay, so as you can see, this is basically if we map this to Bloom's taxonomy, behaviorism is more towards understand and remember. For those of you who likes to play games, because I see in my need analysis in the previous workshop, some of you like to play games. I like to play games with my students as well. Game is behaviorism. It means the students are actually changing or learning by responding to stimuli, external stimuli. So meaning you say, you do this, you get this reward. You don't do this, you get this punishment. So they will do according to what you say is the reward or the punishment. They're responding to your stimuli. So that's behaviorism. So if you use games and whatnot, it is behaviorism. So ask yourself, is it suitable to achieve the learning outcome? I only use games for topics which I do not think they will have to answer in exams, or something that they don't really have to understand in total. If they have to understand in total, then cognitivism is the way to go, because you have to understand everything, get the big picture. All right. Okay, so cognitivism will give you create and evaluate. Constructivism will give you analyze and apply, and connectivism will give you recognize and connect. Okay, so not too detailed into this, otherwise we won't have time to cover everything in this workshop. Okay, so this is the flow just now. So we have covered the learning theories. So now we go to, so we go to the learning styles. Okay, the learning styles, there are 4, okay? And you have to determine your students fall into which category. Okay, whether they are visual, they are oral, read, write, kinesthetic. Sometimes they are actually a combination of more than one. Okay, so you choose the style that comes from determining the type of learners that you have. So these are the characteristics of learners that you have. As I was saying in the previous workshops, I usually use Professor Fleming's Vat Model Questionnaire, and some of you asked me for the questionnaire. Yes, I'll be sharing that in the Telegram group after this workshop. Okay, there are basically 16 questions. You can even ask yourself, do the questionnaire, you will see what type of learner you are. Sometimes maybe you are a cognitive learner. Sorry, maybe you are a read and write learner. So you conduct your class according to your style. You are a read and write person. So your class is about reading zillions of cases. So you give the students, let's look at this list, read everything. Okay, and then if they don't read and they come to tutorials, you say them unprepared. But they're actually not read and write learner. They are kinesthetic learner. So they have to do things to understand. Okay, the ideal version of this thing is basically when you personalize your learning, meaning it means you personalize it according to the type of learners that you have. But I must admit, I'm not as successful in this part as well. I don't have the time to personalize it to each learner. But what I do is I personalize it according to the majority of learners that I have, and I personalize it according to those who underperform. Okay, when they are, because I do formative assessment every week with my students. They are here, 2 of them are here in this, so they know what I'm talking about. So I do this, and based on the formative assessment, I will determine who is actually underperforming. And based on that, I will give extra activities suitable for that type of learner. For example, I have a quiz from last week's lecture. This week is the quiz. So they will do the quiz out of 119 students, for example. I could see that 30 are underperforming. So I would have to go back to my findings in need analysis. These 30 students are actually falling into what category of learners? Sometimes I notice they are visual learners. So when they are visual learners, I want them to do case review for them to read more cases. But I cannot give them Google document to write on, to type on. So I resorted to Pixton. It's a graphic novel tool, the one that I showed you last week. So they had to do that. Sometimes they don't even realize that that's their method. Students usually want the easiest, although that's not something that is suitable for them. Right, so this is the learning style. Okay. Hasana, ada soalan tak so far?
Ada 2 soalan, Doktor.
Yes, apa soalan dia?
Soalan yang pertama, soalan ni panjang sikit. If lecturers are going to use synchronous method and wanted to use an app, so do students need a laptop plus a smartphone as well? If they do not have one of that, can we still use the apps?
It depends on what apps you're talking about here. Okay, most of the apps have a phone app version. So meaning you can find the app in Play Store, but some apps, they're accessible only by web browser. For example, Go Formative, the one that I am going to discuss today, is only web-based. Exam.net is also just web-based. Some apps you can find it on the phone. Okay, the advantage of allowing the students to use apps in their smartphone, meaning apart from their laptop, you want them to use smartphone. The reason why you want them to use apps in smartphone is because it will consume less data compared to asking them to go on internet. And so when you ask them to go web-based, you know, and in their browsers, it will require them to have some form of stable internet connection in comparison to just using apps. This is based on my experience. I'm not someone from FTSM, you know, Faculty Technology and Science Maklumat, but this is really based on my experience. I noticed that when students use apps, it's quicker, it's more stable compared to when they use web-based application. But say, for example, the students do not have 2 devices, no problem. Most of the apps that we have explored in the 4 workshops are apps that are also accessible via the web browser. So if your students do not have another device to work on, no problem. Just use the web-based app. For example, if you want to use Kahoot, Kahoot is the simplest, right? Okay, you want to use Kahoot. Kahoot is accessible via the web, or it's also accessible through the phone. So it's up to you. If your students have both, then they can use both. Otherwise, they just use different windows. Ask them to open different windows in the laptop or in the PC or in the desktop. Okay, the second question, Asana?
Okay, there is another two questions actually. Okay, the second question is, how do you determine the type of students' learning styles?
As I have shared in the previous workshop, maybe this is a new participants, you use the Vat model by Professor Fleming, Neil Fleming. So you can actually find this online. You just type Vat Model Questionnaire, and you will find questionnaires which you can use to ask your students. Ask your students in the beginning of the semester, or better still, ask them before the semester starts. Be in touch with them before the semester starts. Hasana was in touch with me. I was in touch with her 1 month before the semester starts. Betul tak, Hasana?
Yes,
Sure. So get in touch with them early, determine who your learners are. Okay, it's just a matter of WhatsApping, okay, and then getting them to answer online questions, and from there you can decide, you can plan your teaching and learning. Yes, Asana, next question.
Okay, what if you have a mixture of students?
A mixture of students means you have to have a mixture of learning theories, learning approach, and learning style. So say for example, because I have a mixture of students this semester as well. My students are visual and kinesthetic learners. So since I have both, I try to make sure that my approaches combines both theories and approaches, both theories and styles. Okay.
One last question. In a large class, say more than 100 students, how do you cater the learning styles of all these students? I think it's the same with the previous questions.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I can give you a suggestion. Okay, I am lucky this semester because when I did my Vat model questionnaire, I noticed that 80% are kinesthetic and visual learners. So I can cater to 80%. But the ones who are underperforming, I noticed that they are the ones who are in the 20%. They are read and write and oral learners. So this is one way of doing it. You cater to the majority, but when you notice that those who are not falling in the majority are underperforming, you give them extra help. You scaffold differently for them. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, which I have done in the previous batch, okay, is when I separate the tutorials according to the learner's type. So meaning, okay, so there was one, I'm not sure it was last year or was it last year, I had diverse. So what I did was try to fit them as much as possible into learning environments with people who has the same style with them. So basically for tutorial 1, when I go into tutorial, I'll be using lots of things which suits the visual learners because they are there. But once I go into the second tutorial, I'll change my method. That's another way, but that requires a lot more work compared to the first method. So it depends on you. If you are someone who's willing to do that, go ahead. But based on my experience, it requires lots of work and it requires lots of commitment if you want to use that method. Otherwise, go for the majority and don't ignore the underperforming minorities. Okay. Any other questions before
yes. Can Doctor please spell the name of the model?
The model is Vat model. It's V-A-R-K. V stands for visual, A is for oral, R is for read and write, and K is for kinesthetic. It's Vat model. The name of the person who found this model is Neil Fleming, N-E-I-L-F-L-E-M-M-I-N-G, Neil Fleming. All right. Okay, so as I now have to continue first, and then we can come back to the questions later. Yeah. Okay. So this is the flow just now. So we have covered the theories and the style and the constructive alignment. So we go now to the, we go now to the approaches. Yeah. So these are the approaches. So these are things which I will not explain too deeply today because these are the things that I have gone into in the previous 3 workshops. So experiential learning, project-based learning, collaborative learning, problem-based learning, service learning, gamification, and game-based learning. So these are types of approaches, and you have to decide your approaches based on the style and the learning theory. For example, as I was telling you just now, gamification and game-based learning is behaviorism. Okay, experiential learning is actually constructivism. Project-based learning is actually a combination of constructivism and connectivism. Collaborative learning is actually a combination of cognitivism and constructivism. So you decide your learning approaches according to the learning theories and the styles that you have identified. Okay. Okay, next is we are coming now of having understood the important theories and foundation. Now we go to assessment. So I have asked you this question, the first question, why do you assess? Because when I conduct workshops in those workshops that I've conducted before, when I ask these questions, most of the time they would answer because we need to grade the students. So that should not be the primary purpose. The primary purpose is for understanding. Actually, yeah. Okay, how to assess, what to assess, I have explained this. Basically, this is what constructive alignment means. What to assess and how to assess, this has to be determined by you constructively aligning your assessment to your ILO, your learning outcomes, and your learning theories and styles. Okay, so there are basically many types of assessment, okay? And the one that I'm showing you on screen, there are 6, but I'm not going to go into all 6. I'm just going to go into 2 main ones, formative and summative assessment. You need to understand this. Formative assessment, sometimes, because the reason why I'm emphasizing on this is because based on my observation, sometimes lecturers say, oh, I'm doing formative assessment, but actually they're not doing formative assessment. The so-called formative assessment is actually summative in nature. Formative assessment comes from the word form. It is to form understanding. You teach the students and then you do formative assessment to gauge whether or not they have understood and how much have they understood. And the parts that they have not understood, you touch on them and reteach or re-provide the information to them. So that's formative. The purpose of formative assessment is for you to get that. Okay? It's not formative simply for the reason that you are doing it in tutorials. I've had this experience. I asked a lecturer, do you do formative assessment? Yes, I do formative assessment. So what is it that you do? Then she explains what she was doing. And I said, that sounds very summative to me. And she said, oh no, but I did it in tutorial. Doing it in tutorial does not necessarily mean that it's formative. Of course, one of the component or criterion that describes formative assessment is that it is done during the process of learning. But the nature of the assessment must be of such that it is actually used to understand the level of understanding for the student for that small topic, for that subtopic that you have taught, and to use the finding from the formative assessment to assist you to teach further. So I have explained subtopic 1, subtopic 2, subtopic 3. I do formative assessment. After 1 hour of lecture, I noticed that most of them are weak in subtopic 2. So I will now explain again subtopic 2, but perhaps in a different way, okay, so that they may understand. Okay, so that's formative assessment. Summative assessment, you basically measure the student's achievement at the end of instruction. That's where your exam and test comes in, okay? So sometimes you say, oh, it's formative assessment. Why? Because it's assignment. But what is assignment all about? Assignment is supposed to be submitted at the end of exam. It requires them to understand the whole thing, and it's actually a measuring of the students' understanding of the whole course. So it's very much summative, although it's just an assignment. Okay, so there are norm reference, criterion reference, interim benchmark diagnostic. You can actually explore this on your own. They're available online. Okay, but the ones that I'm focusing on is basically formative and summative. Okay, so as I was telling you, formative is basically used to provide feedback during the instructional process, and summative is basically used to sum up learning at the end of the instructional process. Okay, so these are the difference between the two. Diagnostic, usually you do it like what I did just now. That's diagnostic. So you do it at the early part of the course. Before you start the course, do a diagnostic assessment first to know the level of students' understanding before they learn from you. Sometimes we assume, you know, because, oh, now they are in their 4th year, so they should understand their legal methods. Okay, they should be able to read the cases. Why don't you do a diagnostic assessment and see where they are? Or they should know their contract law, or they should know their criminal law. They're in their 4th year. Okay, maybe, but maybe some of them are there, but maybe some of them are not. So diagnose your students using diagnostic assessment. So that diagnostic assessment lah. But the ones that we're focusing on today is formative and summative assessment. Okay. So these are examples, as you can see, examples of assessments based on the types that we have identified just now. So if you're talking about formative assessments, you have student observations, you know, as simple as you asking them questions by standing. I mean, now COVID, you can't do this lah. But let's say you stand in front of the class and you say, okay, if you understand subtopic 1, I want you to raise your this finger, for example. Okay, those of you who understand partially this finger, those of you who don't understand this finger. So maybe 3 finger means something else, 2 finger means something else, 1 finger means something else. As simple as that is already formative assessment. Sometimes formative assessment means you give them points, but the points or marks do not necessarily contribute to the end of the semester's total marks. Okay, maybe because they need marks, because they want to know whether they are good or bad, what they should improve on, right? So maybe when you ask them, for example, you ask them to do an activity in class, and after they have done the activity in class, they submit the work to you, and you give them grade A, B, C, D, or maybe you give them marks over 10, for example. It's marks that will tell them this is my level now, and I need to do more on this, and it will also tell you, okay, I need to do more for this particular student, but it may not necessarily be contributing towards the total marks at the end of the semester. So you can see the samples or examples over there: student observations, homework, reflection journals or sketchbooks, Socratic discussions, student-teacher conferences, peer review, informal presentation, portfolios ongoing, blah, 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 blah. You can see think, pair, and share, visual thinking strategies. Summative are very common in law, basically high-stakes tests, multiple choice, checklist, portfolio performances, rubrics, teacher-created tests, essays, capstone projects, blah, blah, blah. This is something that I took from Education Closet. Okay, so Bloom's taxonomy. So once you have understood the types of assessment that you can use for the purpose of your class, you need to decide which Bloom taxonomy domain that you try to achieve and which level. Okay, why is it that I'm going to Bloom's taxonomy? Because once COVID comes, you know, and we cannot do the traditional hall examinations, as I call it, okay, we have to now resort to something else. So when we want to resort to something else, we need to ask ourselves. For example, if you want to go for open book exam, if you want to go to open book exam as an option, then you have to go back to your Bloom's taxonomy. If you just ask them on your lots, the lower order thinking skills, meaning you ask them things that they remember or understand, explain the concept of blah, 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 blah. That is understanding. Or identify 3 components of or whatsoever. If you ask them this, then open book test is something that you cannot use. Because if open book means that they can refer book, then you have to go higher in the Bloom's taxonomy. Because I know that most universities and colleges and most colleges and universities at the moment are resorting to this option, the open book option. Because in UCAM, FUU in UCAM is also using this. Okay, and some are going towards continuous assessment all out. Okay, just continuous assessment, no exam at all. I heard someone.
Dr. Mizan, could you please remove the black bar?
Okay, okay. You mean the black box at the bottom, is it? Okay, can you see now?
Okay.
Okay, so if you go for open book test, because I think most universities are doing this, then you need to increase the level of your questions according to the higher domain, the higher level of cognitive domain in Bloom taxonomy. So it should be maybe apply onwards, okay? Apply, analyze, evaluate, or create. That's what we did in UKM actually. We have prepared all exam questions. Everything is ready and vetted. Okay, but when COVID comes, our faculty asks everybody to change their question to something that goes higher into the level of the Bloom taxonomy. This is something that we can avoid if we are going for open book option. Okay, so coming back to online assessment, if we map this to the digital tools, yeah. If you want your students to basically just remember, so these are the things that you can ask them to do online. If you want them to understand, these are the things, okay? Applying here, okay? Analyzing here. Remember I showed you Coggle, the mind mapping, all right? And I showed you Flipgrid where they basically comment on their friends and whatnot. This is a form of validating. Surveying, you can use many of the tools that I have given you, okay? Evaluating, grading, testing, posting, moderating, and when you want to create, maybe you can ask them to create blogging or ask them to do a film or a video, podcasting, directing. But once again, it also depends on your need analysis where you will be discovering your students' internet capabilities as well, all right? So you have to balance between trying to achieve the higher level in the cognitive domain and the capability and capacity of your students and yourself actually. All right, so this is just look at the third column over here, the digital blooms, okay? You can see the creating part is programming, filming, animating, blogging, video blogging, mixing, remixing, wikiing, publishing, video casting, podcasting, directing, and broadcasting. So maybe if instead of you creating a podcast for them to learn, you ask them to create a podcast. That will actually serve digital blooms without them having to have high internet data and very stable internet connection, because podcast is very light. Okay, so you can actually, or you maybe can just do it asynchronously. It's still creating high level, but they have to block whatever things that they have learned in your class. So that could be an option as well. Okay, so second level, when you want them to basically evaluate, they can comment on their friend's blog, they can review their friends' answers. For example, in Flipgrid, the one that I showed you in Padlet, okay, post, moderating, collaborating, networking, refactoring, testing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, these are the things that you can do online, basically to map online activities to the Bloom's taxonomy assessment in Bloom's taxonomy. Okay. Okay, so we have understood the difference between formative and summative assessment. We also need to understand the difference between these three parts over here: assessment of, assessment for, and assessment as learning. So assessment of learning is to assess the students' understanding of what they have learned. For example, you ask them to take exams, right? In the exams, you ask questions based on what they have learned. That is assessment of learning. Assessment for learning is when they have not learned that, but in order for them to learn, they have to do the assessment. Like for example, in my class, I don't teach them how to draft writ of summons and statement of claims and statement of defense, the pleadings and whatever not. So I basically just ask them to do it. And they will be getting marks out of doing the course papers. But once they make mistakes, I will tell them this is mistake and you have to change it. This is mistake, you have to change. So they learn by doing the assessment. But of course, you have to be very careful in terms of the allocation of marks. Don't allocate too big of marks for assessment for and assessment as learning. Assessment as learning is self-regulated. For example, in compulsory modes, I take example, you ask them to present and then you comment verbally. Okay, I think your opening remarks was not very accurate. That's not how an opening remark is supposed to be done in court. So you explain to them. So this is assessment as learning. They self-regulate. They listen to you. Oh, okay. So they assess themselves. Okay, I'm not good enough for this. I'm not good enough. What I did was not accurately suitable for what is expected for this particular part of the course, so I have to change this. So that assessment for learning. You can even give marks for this. For example, you ask them to write their own reflections of what they have learned, and you give them marks for it, but cannot be too big of marks because it's assessment as learning. Okay, so these are the three types of assessment: of, for, and as learning. And in terms of rubric, as I was explaining to you, there are two types of rubric: holistic, global, and analytic. Holistic is like this. For example, let me just show you. This is an example of holistic rubric. You can see the score is 1, 2, 3, 4, and the description is here. So this is holistic. If all the food is perfectly cooked, the presentation surpasses expectation, and recipient is kept exceptionally comfortable throughout the meal, then it's 4. So it's a combination of more than one criterion together as a criteria that would give you 4. So this is holistic. Compare this with analytic. Analytic is when you break down the criteria into separate criterion, and you basically assess each of it. So it is more time consuming to do analytic. Okay, it is simpler to use holistic. In fact, it is simpler to use primary trait, okay, which I'm not introducing here. So it's simpler to use holistic, but it is more accurate with analytic. So if you use analytic, okay, and you give your students at the end of the day the results of the analytic assessment, analytic rubric, okay, the students will also be able to learn from that. Oh, I'm poor in terms of my language. Because sometimes, for example, some universities use English language, right? So if you use English language, sometimes the student is very good in terms of the comprehension of the law, but very bad in terms of the English language. So we'll still score very high in terms of the content, but score very low in terms of the language. So when you fill up the rubric and you give them after the assessment, they look at the rubric and they understand, oh, actually my content is good, my content is fine, okay, but my language is actually poor, so I have to change this. And with my students, most of the time, not all the time, most of the time I would give them beforehand. Maksudnya at the beginning of the week or maybe at the beginning of the semester, okay, these are my rubrics, okay, and this is how you're going to be assessed. Sometimes I don't, but most of the time I do. I give them, okay, and they know, okay, I have to focus on these things over here. Okay, so these are the two types of rubric assessment that we have. Okay, so now we come to the tools. You have understood the theory. Remember I was telling you, I'm trying to give you TPAC. You have your CK, your content knowledge. I've given you the pedagogical knowledge, the PK. Now I'm giving you the TK, the technological knowledge. So you have your pedagogical, now I'm giving you the technological, combined with your CK, then you have your TPAC. Okay, so now for formative, sorry, there's a mistake in my slide. Exam.net is actually a summative assessment. It's not formative assessment. It could be both actually. All right, so we go to the type of formative and summative assessment that you can do. Okay, there's a mistake over here. Just change between the tajuk. I did this at 2 AM in the morning last night, so dah tak betul dah. Okay, so basically what you're looking at in the blue list, that's formative assessment. Okay, the orange list is actually the summative assessment. Okay. All right, so what can you do in your formative assessment? You can do a quiz on Padlet. Padlet is actually not a quiz tool, but you can still use it as a quizzing tool. Or I like something simple like this, Google Forms quiz, where you basically just use Google Form to do the quiz. Okay, or Go Formative is a tool that you can use, or quizzes, Edpuzzle or eProctor exam. Sorry, eProctor exam is supposed to be in summative, it's supposed to be in the orange color. Okay, so let's try quizzes. I will stop sharing. Okay, are you ready with your smartphone? So now we come to the simulation. Okay. Okay. Hang on for a second, I'll try to move the black box first. Hang on, yeah. Okay. I'm opening a quiz and let's try to do this together. I used this in my class for formative assessment. Hasana and Hanis is very familiar with quizzes because they have quizzes every week with me. Okay, betul tak Hasana?
There is homework as well.
All right, so let's look at this. Okay, nampak tak saya punya apa ni screen Hasana?
Yes, Dr. I can see.
Okay. Okay, let's try this. You just open your quizzes apps in your phone. Okay. Okay, and we'll simulate first, and then I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so just enter the class code. It's 528180. So everybody is law here, right? So the quiz is on a very simple law topic. It's called layout of the court. Okay, so I can see people coming in. Hasanah, dia punya sound dengar sekali ke?
Yes, Doctor, I can see. I can hear.
Dengar, Doktor, dengar.
Okay. Some people are very smart, they're not putting their real names, kan? For my class, I basically make it compulsory for students to use their real name so that, you know, I can use it as formative assessment lah. Okay, anybody else coming in? Okay, so I can scroll down and see the students that are in the, this is not just games, you know. It may look superficially like just a game that you play, but it's actually a very effective formative assessment tool. So you can see your students coming in here. The total number of students is shown here. Now there are 41 students. Say for example, now in the workshop, there are about 80 plus participants, but only 42 in this list over here. Not every student has actually come into the class. Anybody else? Even after you have started the quiz, okay, they can still enter. They can still enter, but of course, they will be losing some time lah. Macam with my students, I usually do this in the form of formative assessment. So I cakap, okay, how I do it is like this. You have 15 minutes to answer, let's say 20 multiple choice questions or 25 multiple choice questions, okay, and you need to put your real names so that I know your progress or your performance level. Okay, so yeah, that's how I do it. I will explain further as we go on. More coming in. There are 52 so far. Oh, Dr. Sony just came. ABW, siapa tu ABW tu? Oh, Dr. Akmal just came in. 58, more coming? Any more? Otherwise, I'll start the quiz. Okay, maybe the rest just wants to observe, okay, instead of experiencing. Since I have adult learners in this workshop, I'm using pedagogy, so I give more autonomy to the participants. Yeah, si Comeloteh, kelas nama kan. Okay, 59 so far. I'll start. Yeah, the rest of you, if you come, you can still come in. The class code will be shown at the top of this, on the top of the screen. Okay, let's start. Okay, so 62% meaning of all the students in the class, their understanding is 62% of what they have actually gotten from your class, from your teaching. So you can grade yourself. That's your marks actually, 62%. Okay, so you can look based on the questions as well. Okay, how many students understood how much students understand for each question. Okay, and you can also look here, questions, each question. Let's say for question number 1, 41 got correct answer, 23 got incorrect answer. If you look up here, okay, let me just show you the results from my class, yeah, so that it's more relevant. So congratulations to those of you who have scored very highly for this quiz, okay. I hope you have experienced quizzes. I was informed that Dr. Majda has taught you again on quizzes before for those of you who are from ICOL. Okay, for those of you who are not from ICOL, if you have not tried this is a very good formative assessment tool. Okay, for example, let me just show you. Okay, these are my quizzes. I have quizzes session with my students every week. So what I did with yeah, I can use the word did because I have finished all my classes. So what I did with my students is that a week before the class, I will give them video lectures in my YouTube channel. So I have one specific dedicated YouTube channel for the purpose of my class, which is Tata Cara Civil Procedure. So every time, let's say the class is next week, I will upload, let's say 6 teaching videos onto the web channel, and the students will be informed that they have 1 week to watch the video and learn from the video asynchronously, meaning whenever they want, they can watch it with any device, anywhere. So they can just watch and listen. And after the COVID-19 started, I added another method, which is YouTube video, YouTube video and also podcast audio lecture. So that it's lighter for those who do not have that high of internet data and not that strong of internet connection. So they will be given 1 week to basically do this, to listen to the audio or watch the YouTube video, okay, and learn from there. They can ask me questions at the comment section beneath the video, and I usually do not answer the questions directly. If the questions are something that any other friends in the class can help to answer, I will name the students from the class, other students in the class to answer the questions. This is actually pedagogy. So basically you are doing peer learning in class. So if, let's say, for example, their friends have answered the question correctly, then fine. If they answered incorrectly, then I will correct them in the thread, in the comment thread beneath each video. So that will happen a week before the class, asynchronously, flexibly, anytime, anywhere, okay? And when the class day comes, I will start the class with a formative assessment. They will come into the class. Before COVID, they come to the lecture hall. During COVID, they come into Zoom class, and I will start my quiz test with them on that particular topic. These are the quiz tests that I have done with them, okay? So they will be answering questions based on what they have learned based on what they have learned from the video. So I'm using formative assessment so that the findings of the formative assessment will tell me which part of what they have learned in the video is the ones that they do not understand. So let's look here. Example, this is the report from all my quizzes. So let's take this one over here, discovery by interrogatories. So I did this quiz with them, okay? And these are my students. So you can see each student with their scores. Okay, these are the scores that I'm talking about just now. You have to give them scores, but it may not necessarily be something that contributes towards their summative assessment scores. So 90%, 96% accuracy for this particular student over here. So this one is 100%. So you can look at the students based on their individual progress, okay? You can sort by score or you can sort by accuracy of first name, because score is based on two factors, the correct answer and also the fastest to answer. So you can look at that. Or when you want to use this as a formative tool to basically know which part of your teaching that needs more enhancement, you go to this button over here, it's overview. So it will give you overview of all questions that you ask in the quiz, and you can see on top here, Okay. Which question requires enhancement? This question over here, see? Question 8, because only 38% answers correctly. And are there any more like that? As you go along, question 22 also requires enhancement, which is 33%. So you have to go back to this question and you have to explain back the topic to the students. Okay. After the red tag, look at the yellow tag, because yellow tag is also something that requires attention. Meaning, for example, question number 5, only 50% answered correctly. So you go back to the question. That question is actually on which subtopic. So you touch back on that subtopic. So this is what I meant by using formative assessment online to help you to form, to help students to form their learning. Okay, ada soalan tak sana setakat ni?
Ada doktor, saya bacakan ya. Okay, soalan dari questions from Dr. Nur Aisyah. Okay, if using the take-home method, take-home exam method, what level can be used? And what is the difference between a diploma and a degree when taking home exam?
Okay, there are two dimensions to that question. Firstly, if you do a take-home, what level, right? I think it depends on the question that you use for the take-home. So meaning if, let's say, for example, by right, if you are using a take-home test, by right, you should not be using questions at the lower level of the cognitive domain of Bloom taxonomy, because they would be able to copy the answer from just any source, right? So by right, it should be something higher. But to answer your question, if you use take-home, what level? It depends on the question. If you use higher order questions or higher level of cognitive domain in your question, meaning the questions requires the students to apply or to critically analyze something, that is actually high. Okay, but if you give them take home test, but the question is basically just for them to explain things, so it's going to be low lah. So by right, if you give them take home, it means they can go back home, they can talk to someone, they can refer to some sources to answer the question. It should be questions which test them at the higher level of cognitive domain in Bloom taxonomy. Okay, the second part is, what is the difference between diploma and degree? If you go to the Kerangka Kelayakan Malaysia, okay, I'm not an expert in this, but from what I understand based on my visits to other colleges and universities, usually there is a different level that you should be using for different types of degree or diploma programs. For example, I was once in this one college or institution. They are basically they basically asked me to go into their teaching and learning and assessment materials, and I noticed that they are actually teaching diploma program. And at that particular time, I was very familiar with this. I looked into the Kerangka Kelayakan. It shows that they should just be asking the students, the highest is certain level in Bloom taxonomy, but their question is so high, okay, and the students are underperforming. So you cannot ask a degree level questions in a diploma examination paper. You may say, oh, it's good because it gives them something more, but it's not fair because they are not supposed to be tested on that ground. By the end of the day, you test them so high, but they're getting just a diploma or maybe just a certificate. So that's basically my what I can share lah, basically. Other questions, Hasana?
Yes, from Dr. Farah Awaluddin, how can assessment be enhanced through the use of digital tools?
How can assessment be enhanced using digital tool? Is that the question?
Yes, Doctor.
So how you can use it is what I'm showing you is one example. You are using an online tool to basically gauge your students' understanding of what you have taught them. Without digital, okay, because your question is how does digital help you to enhance assessment, right? Without digital tool like Quiz-Is, for example, or Go Formative, you would have to do it manually. Okay, you would have to do it manually, and it will take some time for you to actually come up with something what Quiz-Is is showing us now. You can see immediately after the quiz which question requires more enhancement, for example. If you do it manually, it takes some time. But I do it in class like this. Immediately after the quiz, I can go straight to the topic that requires more emphasis. Okay, now question 8. Seems here question 8 requires more emphasis. So I straight away go to question 8 now. So that is one way of how digital and online tool can help enhance the assessment. Okay, any other question?
Yes, okay, from Dr. Safina Saleh, how to make sure that the students refer to the rubrics that we shared? How?
Basically, you just give them the rubrics. Give them the rubrics. Give them the rubrics, explain the rubrics to them in class. Like for example, in my class, the first week of the semester, there's always an induction. You can ask Hasana. Morning is lecture. Afternoon is usually class activities and what. I don't use tutorial method anymore ever since I go to UKM because I don't think it's suitable for my course. So I have activities instead of tutorials. So first week I don't have any activities. What I have is induction sessions in the afternoon. So in the induction sessions, I will introduce everything to them. This is how I'm going to assess you. These are the rubrics. This is how you're going to be measured and whatsoever. So they can ask me questions. Doctor, you said that you want to assess us on pressure assessment because I have pressure assessment. So what is it that you'll be looking into when you look into pressure assessment? I will be giving you this and that. I even sometimes give them examples of simulated questions. Okay, these are questions that I've asked in the previous batch. So this is how it looks like. These are the things that I will ask. So you can give them the rubrics from early on. You don't actually have to make them to follow the rubrics. They will follow the rubrics, provided that you have formative assessments during the learning process to make sure they know that, oh, if I don't follow, then I will, later on, I will not be performing in my summative assessment. So that's how you actually do it. You don't actually have to like, okay, korang buat, bukan macam tu lah. Basically, you just, and these are adult learners, you know, you use andragogy, you give them autonomy a bit. Okay, you give them the rubric, okay, this is how you're going to be assessed and whatever, and blah, 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 and then give them the motivation to actually follow the rubric. Any other questions?
That means that, can I interrupt?
Yes.
Question? Okay, because actually I gave a rubric to my students for several semesters, and then like you did, like you explained just now, I gave during the first week, during the first tutorial, explain everything, what's the rubric for assignment, for example, for written assignment, what they should do. But when they submit the assignment, I can see that they have not referred. They did not refer to the rubric because as simple as, for example, I put one of the rubric that they should follow this standard of referencing for, or this format of referencing for their in the assignment, in the written assignment. But almost all assignment did not follow the format or adopt the format. So, and then when during the next semester, I will remind students, you have to refer to the rubric. I gave example what happened in the last semester, student mistake and everything. But during submission, I found the same result again. So that's why I think the thing that I missed is that the formative assessment to ensure that students follow or use the rubric. So that's something that I don't know how to make formative assessment to ensure that students follow the rubrics given to them.
Okay, let me just ask you this question. When should the student submit their assignment in your class? Is it at the end of the semester?
Yes. Yes.
Because they are looking at it as a form of summative rather than formative assessment. So meaning if they submit to you at the end of the semester, do you actually go back to them and inform them that they have not been following the rubrics?
Means that it will be only found during after submission.
Because if they submit at the end of the semester, so that you will not be getting the chance to tell them that you have not been following the rubrics. So they may not even know that they are not following the rubrics. For all we know, maybe they thought they are following the rubrics, because you know, students sometimes, instead of following your rubrics, They might be going to a senior who has scored in your class very highly, or maybe they feel that that senior is smart and they will follow the senior's advice rather than following your rubrics. So only you can tell them that, no, what you are doing is not following the rubric. So how to do that? Maybe instead of just making it in the form of submission at the end of the semester, so what you can do is, okay, submission at the end of semester is there, but you also have this formative assessment based on something similar, rubric that might be similar to the ones that you want them to follow at the end of the semester. And every time they did something, let's say after 2 or 3 weeks, they did something based on that rubric, and you can comment, okay, you are not following the rubric, so you're scoring very low. So these are the parts. You can use the analytic rubric that I showed just now. So these are the parts that needs improvement. So they can observe from that comment that you give, and then they will try to incorporate that in the assignment that they will submit at the end of the semester. So although your assignment is just an assignment, it sounds to me as though the assignment is some form of summative assessment. So you need formative assessments to enhance that summative assessment. That's one answer to your question. Another suggestion that I could also give is this. I have tried this. If you are brave enough, you can also try this. Okay, what I did was, in one batch, not Hasana's batch, in one batch, I asked the students to tell me how they want me to assess them. So I'm going constructivism all the way. So I'm saying, I tell them in the very beginning of the semester, okay, these are the things that I will be assessing you on, but for this allocation of marks over here for 15% or 10%, I'm asking you to tell me how I should assess you. Topics to be covered are this. And I explain to them the topics are basically about this, this, and this. How do you want to be assessed? So they come up with their own rubric for me. But of course, I won't be using the rubric in totality. I will also be adjusting the rubric accordingly. But they tell me, okay, doctor, I want to be assessed like this because my strength is this, this, and this. My learning style is this. So in that particular semester, I have different kinds of assessment. So what's the role here as a learning designer? You make sure that although the assessments are different, the marks should not be so big for this. Although the assessments are different, you try to make sure that they are all at more or less the same level. Okay, maybe this person is assessed by essay. This person is assessed by doing a video. This person is assessed by making an oral presentation. But by the end of the day, the question or whatever things that you want to use to assess them must be at the same level. It's just the method of being assessed can actually be different. Okay, so what I did with my student was, okay, I grouped them. Okay, those of you who want to be assessed in the form of presentation, here. Those of you who wants to be assessed in the form of writing essay, here. Those of you who wants to be assessed in the form of doing infographic, you are here. So I grouped them and I briefed them separately, and I said, okay, if you want to do this, this is how you're supposed to do it. So at the end of the semester, I have different types of assessment. So this is another suggestion that you can do if you feel that you are up for it lah. Because I've done this, it was super marvelous. So because everybody, suddenly my students, my class becomes performing almost 100%. Everybody is performing because they are actually being assessed on something that they are good at. The content is still the same. Okay, so these are the two suggestions that I can give to you lah. Does that help, Dr. Safina, or you need more explanation?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Hasana?
Doctor, last question. Some of the lecturers were asking on how to create the questions. Maybe Doctor can show how to create the questions. In quizzes.
Yeah, in quizzes, right? Okay, so if you want to create a quiz in quizzes, so what you can do is, okay, Dr. Majda maybe boleh tolong bantu-bantu kot if you want to share anything ke apa ya. Alright, so if you want to create a quiz, you basically just go to the top of the screen, okay, and you see a button here, create a new quiz, right? Okay, first let's go to my quizzes. Okay, these are the quiz that you have. So let's create a new quiz. So when you create a new quiz, okay, so it will bring you to this pop-up over here. Boleh nampak pop-up tak sana?
Boleh, Doktor.
Okay, so let's say you type. I'm just going to type simulation lah, simulation quiz. So it asks you to basically choose the relevant subjects. You just choose others for us in university. So next. Okay, there are 5 types of question. Okay, And I've used multiple choice, I've used checkbox, I've used open-ended. Fill in the blank so far I've not used, okay? So if you are someone who wants, because I think law lecturers usually like open-ended, right? So if you want to ask open-ended question, also can, short answers question. It has that function over here, okay? Choose one question. Say for example, your first question is multiple choice, you click multiple choice, okay? Then it will bring you to this pop-up over here, okay? And you write your question. What is instructional design, for example? Then you give answer, blah, 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 blah. I think this one is more or less similar with the Mentimeter that I've shown you before. But the difference between Mentimeter and this is that quizzes is good for formative assessment because it gives you the results at the end. How many students answered wrongly for this part? How many students answered wrongly for this particular part? Okay, for each student, you can also assess. This student lacks this part. This student lacks this part. Compared to Mentimeter, the questions are limited. It's more of an engaging tool in class. This one is really an assessment tool actually, but it's made in a more fun and friendly layout. Okay, so let's say these are the options. You just insert the options. You can either, options can either be in the form of words like this, or you can also add image. Or you can also add math equation. Maybe Dr. Akmal nak buat kiraan apa tu? Apa entah benda belajar dulu tu apa? Consanguine brothers apa tu Dr. Akmal? I got an A anyway from Dr. Akmal dulu. Okay, so uterine sister whatever kan? The calculation of the apa tu?
Betul lah tu. Uterine consanguine.
So I still remember Dr. Akmal writing on the board kan the kiraan tu, which really surprised us, like macam oh my god, we entered law faculty because we don't want to do math and now here comes the math. Okay, so maybe you can use here benda tu if you feel that is something that you can use lah. And then you tag standards just ignore je sebab actually quizzes ni dia free. It's actually free for K-12 lecturers in US. So they will tag their standards, so you don't actually have to use this. Then you just decide on the time for each question. So sometimes I give 5 seconds. If the question is very simple, it's Bloom taxonomy, very lowest level, just asking them to remember, I'm not going to give them more time. So just 5 seconds. In 5 seconds, what is the meaning of this? Just 5 seconds only. So you can also control the time. Okay, so choose the time and then click save. You can see on the right side is how it will appear in your student's smartphone. Okay, so just click save and then, okay, you have to, good thing about quizzes. See, I'll try again. I've inserted the answers, right? Let's say I click save, what happened? It reminds me, you have not chosen the correct option. Mentimeter does not do this tau. So Mentimeter sometimes, I had the experience of playing the quiz with the class and suddenly the correct answer doesn't appear because I did not choose the correct answer. It happens in Hasana's class. Now Hasana, you know my secret because it doesn't appear and I was telling them, oh okay, also there's a glitch here in the system. Actually, I tak choose. So one thing good about the quizzes ni, you can actually choose. Even if you forget, they can remind you. So I said this is the right answer. So you click save. So once you click save, it will appear here. Next question, you want to do what? You want to do multiple choice juga or you want to do something else? Maybe check boxes or maybe you want to do open-ended. So click open-ended. But remember, open-ended, it will not mark for you. For multiple choice, it will automatically mark for you. But for open-ended, you will have to manually mark lah. It will just assess the student in terms of who is the quickest in answering the question. Okay, so just insert your question. What is the definition of let's say ADDIE model? Okay, then it doesn't have options, of course, so you just decide how long. Since it is actually an open-ended question, maybe I'll take 15 minutes. That's too long, it's just a lower level, right? What is the definition? Okay, so maybe definition not too long lah, so I just give maybe 5 minutes to answer. So save. So it will appear, okay, underneath the questions that you have created on top. So this is how you create the questions in quizzes. Okay. Are there any questions so far, Sana, on quizzes?
Okay, Dr. Roslina asked whether we can create a mixture of questions like MCQ, checkbox in one quiz. Means that we mix all the types of question in one quiz.
Yeah, can. I've shown you just now. You can just choose every time you have created a question, the next question, you can just choose any type of question that you want for the next question. So you can actually do that. Okay, anything else?
That's it, Doctor, for now. Oh,
Okay.
yeah, from Dr. Sony. Okay, I used Kahoot before, quizzes versus Kahoot. Any short comment?
Okay, I prefer quizzes. Kahoot also okay. Kahoot also has this analyzing overview at the end of the quiz. But I feel that the options are more in quizzes. For example, I'll just give you one example. For Kahoot, okay, I'm not sure the latest version of Kahoot because I've not been using Kahoot for about 2 years already, ever since I found something else like Quizzes, Quizlet and whatnot. Okay, Quizster is another one. Okay, the last version that I use for Kahoot, it allows you up to 4 options for answers. Whereas for quizzes, you can have more options. So that's one thing. And another thing is it also basically allows you to be, there's one very huge difference now between Kahoot and quizzes. If you notice just now, when you were doing the quiz in my quizzes study, you see in your phone the question, and what appears on the teacher screen, my screen, is actually the list of students and their progress in answering the question. If you remember Kahoot, the teacher screen will not show the students' progress because Kahoot is very much lecturer control, teacher control. So meaning you show one question. Okay, this is the question, and these are the answers. So student will answer. Finish that one, you move on to the next question. Something like what we did in Mentimeter just now. As a teacher, I control the question, which question comes out. But for quizzes, it's like a test. It depends on them. You give them 10 questions, it depends on them how to answer the question. Oh, there's another thing that I like about quizzes as well, because we're talking about assessment now, right? One of the concerns that usually is posed to me in workshops on assessment is on online lah, ever since COVID ni. I've had like 7 or 8 workshops, and the question is always this: how do we prevent the students from, cheating or talking? Of course, we can't eliminate totally the possibility, but we can minimize it. So what you can do is, quizzes has this function whereby, okay, let's say you prepare 10 questions and you have 100 students, right? When you start the quiz, not all students will be getting the questions in the same sequence. Meaning, let's say you start with question number 1, you start the quiz, student A might be looking at question number 10, student B might be looking at question number 3, so student C might be looking at question number 5. So the questions are jumbled up so that even if they talk to each other, they're not looking at the same question. Before COVID, before MCO, I used to do this in class, meaning they watch my video because I use flipped classroom method. So they watch my teaching video before the class in YouTube channel. Once they come to the class during the class itself, the face-to-face class, they are sitting beside each other. Okay, once I start the quiz, I say you have half an hour to answer the quiz. Okay, but they are not able to actually discuss because they are not looking at the same question as the question comes to them. So that is one among the things that I like about quizzes lah. Does that answer the question? I hope it does. Any other questions?
Okay, there's 2 more questions. Is there any limit number to set the questions?
I do not have an exact confirmed answer for that, but so far I've used up until 25 questions. I've not been limited lah. And what I have been reading about quizzes is there are no limits in terms of the number of quizzes that you can create as well. Tapi okay, as I was saying, right, this workshop is not about teaching per se, it's also about sharing. So I'm sharing what I have discovered. So what I know is that quizzes ni, dia macam actually originally designed, is free because it's originally designed for K-12 teachers. So actually if you choose, tadi kan when you want to start the quiz, they will ask you what level and what not, what subject kan, because they are actually designing this for K-12 teachers. So they understand the fact that teachers need more, but they can't afford to pay. So that's why it's created that way. It's quite unlimited. That's another reason why I like quizzes in comparison to other platforms. Dr. Majla, anything to add?
More basic, nothing much. What we did previously was almost the same to what you did.
Okay, anything else, Hasana, before I move on?
Yes, doctor. So basically, from Dr. Farhin, she asked whether quizzes appears to be synchronous. Does it need a stable internet connection?
Hasana, why don't you answer that question? I think we have experience in class, kan?
Yeah, okay. I was just about to type it. Okay, basically, we really need a very, very good internet connection because just now, Dr. Shamusa, when you did the quizzes just now, he couldn't enter, he was being kicked out from the quizzes. So basically he asked me what happened. So I and Hanis said that it's probably because of the internet connection. And when I asked him, he do really have internet connection right now. So basically what we can conclude here is that quizzes really need a good internet connection. If not, you'll be behind. Yeah.
Hasana, why don't you also share the attempts that we tried in our class with Hanis. Hanis is the technical committee for my class. So what was done actually in the class to try to overcome the problem?
Okay, basically, when in university, most of the students have already downloaded the apps in their smartphones. However, when they encounter this kind of problem, we will ask the student to open in the browser through the website, not in the apps itself. Yeah, that is one of the methods that you can choose lah.
That's one. You can actually ask them because in our class, what happened was some students have problems with the apps in their phone because this is because of the device that they use. So we ask them to open in browser instead. That's one option. Another option is another way of how you can solve this problem is you tell the students to basically test first. Okay, before I give quizzes, I ask them, okay, next week you're going to have quizzes and please make sure that you test your connection first. So the students will basically go into their, maybe if they are doing it from home, they can just go to any spot at home that they think has the strongest internet connection and they try to do quizzes from there and see how it goes. So this is a simulation to assess their own internet connection. That's one thing. So the third thing that you can do is, I remembered some students, Hanis and Hasana can correct me if I'm wrong. I remembered some students even asked permission to to basically use 2 devices for one quiz. Okay, doctor, I'm going to open in my browser. At the same time, I'm also going to open from my phone. I'll be using this name. Let's say my name is Ali, Ali1, and the other one is Ali2. So at the end of the quiz, they will tell me, doctor, actually the one that I successfully used up until the end was actually Ali2 in my phone. The one in the laptop hang. Okay, so that's another way that you can do it. Okay, anything else?
Last question from Dr. Aisha. What is your comment if we use these quizzes as the final exam for the students?
I think it depends on the type of final exam that you have. This goes back to what I have explained in the beginning. This goes back to your instructional design. This goes back to your learning theory, your intended learning outcome. Will using quizzes as a tool for final exam achieve that? Because I did not specifically classify this under my summative assessment category because I don't think it will achieve my learning outcome. But if you think you can somehow manipulate it to achieve that, and then it's fine. Okay. Any other questions? Apa ni Hasana?
Last one. Which form of quizzes is suitable for law students? I think the form of questions good.
Once again, there's no such thing as which form is suitable for all law, because when you talk about law pun, although they are similar to each other, it also depends on the type of subjects that you are teaching kan. Some subjects are procedural, some subjects are merely practical like advocacy. Like in UKM we have advocacy course, purely advocacy, or maybe it's just substantive. So it depends on which type of subjects that you are teaching, and you look at the type of question that can actually teach that more effectively. Okay, anything else? I move lah ya, nanti we can come back to the questions later.
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, all right. So this is one of the tools. So we can go back to the, where was it again? Okay, let's try one summative assessment tool. Okay, This is called exam.net. Okay, I find this to be very useful, and so far in my faculty pun, we are not using exam.net juga, because by the end of the day, we take into consideration of the fact that some lecturers are not very IT savvy. So we do not want to, you know, macam cause even more complications by asking lecturers who are not IT savvy at all, because we have, you know, in our faculty, we have lecturers who do not even have smartphones and only use internet only for email. So we have that. So we resort to other methods. But some of my friends in the faculty who are moderately, not excellently IT savvy, they're moderately savvy, they think, they feel that exam.net is very useful. And I personally feel that exam.net is very useful. Okay, my student is another story lah kan sana. Okay, so you go to this website over here, it's it's exam.net, okay? You just go to Google, you start exam.net. This is actually a Swedish platform. It was not open before, but now it's open. Since COVID has started, it's now open to everyone, even outside Sweden. It used to be just for Swedish teachers. Okay, and there are, when you go to the homepage for exam.net, you will see teacher login or student login. So I'm not going to log in as teacher. So I'm going to do a simulation exam for you to have a feel of exam.net. Can you, okay, this one you can use your phone or you can use another window in your laptop, up to you, but there's no apps. You need to open a browser, you need to open a Google, you need to go to exam.net and enter as student by taking the exam key. Can you do it now, please? This is quite important so that you may have a feel of how this is, how to say, it's not exactly similar with the traditional hall exam that we usually have, but it resembles rather closely. So that I can say. So for those of you who feels very strongly about I have to do exam or at least a test, this could be a useful tool. Okay. All right. So are you ready? So if you're ready, I'm going to give you the key in the chat. Okay, you can just copy paste the key when you log into the exam.net, yeah? Okay, so that is the oh, sorry. I have to send to everyone in the meeting. Okay. Okay. All right, so that's the code. I'm going to start the exam. This is just a simulation exam, so you don't have to worry so much. Okay, you can look at the screen now, my screen. So if you're opening exam.net from a different window, so you have to switch screens. Tengok between how it looks like from the teacher's end and how it looks like from the student's end. Okay. Okay, as you can see now from my screen, this is the teacher screen. The exam key is this one over here. All right, and I have not opened the exam for new students. Okay, so now what I will do is I will open the exam for the new students to come in. Okay, you can try to come in using this exam key and you will have a feel of how it looks like from inside the exam hall, the virtual exam hall. Okay, so once I click that, it asks me, are you sure that you want to open the exam for new student? Yes, open. So now it's open. So I can see that Dr. Safina has come in, Dr. Suzy. Okay, so you can see your student coming into the virtual exam hall. Anybody else?
Dr. Mizan, student ID, which one?
Student ID is your macam kalau student tu dia punya metric number lah. So anything will do. So you can see that how it arranges the names of the students in the student list is that it will put the student ID number first and then followed by the student's name. So if they enter their metric number, so the metric number will appear first lah, followed by their name, just like how we wanted in our answer sheet kan.
This one also synchronous, isn't it?
Exam.net.
Yes, this one is synchronous, correct. So once they enter the exam, you can see the number of students who have started the exam is 37. Okay, the 37 students is starting to answer the question. And what about those students who have internet problems? Okay, you can see them here. Oh no, this is not those who has internet problem. The one in red, a frosted sorry, this symbol over here, it means that these students attempt to cheat. So you can see NASA, kau nak meniru so you can see, Dr. Safina, what are you trying to do? So you can actually ask the student, I think Hasana's batch has tried this with me a few times in one of our in some of our formative assessments. What happened?
What actually indicate that the student attempt to cheat? Because just now, because I'm using in different windows, so when I open the exam.net, I cannot see your Zoom. So
yes.
I try to find the Zoom window. So that was what happened just now. I found that I was unlocked. I was locked.
Yes. Yes, correct. So, Dr. Safina, I'm not saying that you actually cheat. I was just joking, but that is how cheating happens lah. One form of cheating is what our students usually do is that they like to copy paste. Kan? When they look at the question appearing in the exam exam question paper, they will try to find the answer online. So what they will do you notice that when you try to answer the question, once you enter the exam, it will bring you to a full screen version of the question paper and the answer sheet. So you are supposed to just answer on that sheet and you are not supposed to minimize the window. If you try to minimize the window, you'll be locked out. And you would have to give reason. What happened? Why were you locked out? So you have to give reason why you tried to actually minimize it. Of course, the students can still actually refer to books. So this exam.net is suitable for your open book. So they can actually refer to books, any hard copy materials they can use. But they cannot copy paste. They still have to type their answer. So if you use high level of Bloom taxonomy questions in this tool, okay, plus with the fact that they cannot copy paste, they would have to read and they can refer to anything on paper, but they would have to still write their answer. So it will somehow or rather minimize the tendency to cheat.
But just now, I'm using my handphone actually, and then it pop the message, the device is too small for you to type in, meaning that your student have to use their laptop, isn't it?
Correct, yes. It doesn't mean that you cannot use your phone. You can, the app will not prohibit you from using the phone, but it gives you a warning, meaning you proceed at your own risk. It's not suitable to use your phone, but if that's the only thing that you have, then you can use it, but you know, it will be small and whatnot lah. Do you notice that on the left side of the answer sheet, I've prepared a statute for you to refer. I'm not sure whether it's on the left side or on the top. There's one button for extra document. So for us, right, for law papers, we usually want students to refer to statutes, kan? So we can insert the statutes over there. So the students can just refer. In fact, kalau macam let's say for example Dr. Akmal, for example, the probate and law of successions gang, you want them to do calculation. You can even put in calculator there, a virtual calculator for them to count, to calculate, you know. So you can actually do that. Okay, I'm going to okay, what else can you see from the student end? Can you see a place where you can ask questions?
I can see message waiting for unlock because just now my handphone auto lock kan. So now you have to unlock me. I'm requesting for unlocking.
Actually, it will unlock automatically because I set it to be unlocked after a certain period of time.
You have to write a reason. Kata pergi toilet.
Yes. Okay. I will show you one more function here. I will make a broadcast announcement for everyone in the exam hall. Okay, say for example, I want to announce you have apa ni apa orang kata 5 minutes left. You have 5 minutes. You can just use the apa ni the message button at the teacher screen, and you can enter your message. So it will be broadcasted to all the students. And if the students have Any questions to ask? You can in exam sometimes the students would like to raise their hand and ask questions. Kan? They could always use the button on the left too, at the bottom too, for chat too. Okay? Then you'll be notified that your students is actually asking the question. Okay?
Doctor?
Yeah.
What is the meaning of the icon like lightning at the side of like Shatras, Najiba?
I will explain that after everyone has come to the screen. Ada sebab. That's very important actually, that icon. Okay, now let's say for example, okay, time is up. You have to to submit your answer. Okay, kalau dekat if in exam hall, we'll be saying it from the speaker, from the microphone kan. Time's up, stop writing, and some students will still keep on writing. So now here what we do is we just force submission. Okay, I'm pressing force submission now. Okay, and proceed, yeah? Okay. You can see all, you will see that your papers are not being snatched away from you. Okay. So all answers have been taken, okay? Have been collected. So can you now come back to the teacher screen so that I can show you how it looks like from the teacher's end? Okay, so if you look at the this one, alamak dah tak tunjuk dah. Okay, basically just now Puan Marina asked a very good question. Was it Puan Marina who asked that question? I macam rasa dia tadi soalannya suara tu. Puan Marina
Yeah, betul.
Just now Puan Marina was asking a very good question tau. Macam when the exam was going on, you will see the list of students. Now you see all the green tick over here means everyone actually submitted the question paper, the answer paper lah. But there was actually, when the exam was going on, the red symbol basically indicates somebody who is trying to minimize the window and go to somewhere else online to find the answer lah. But there was also a lightning symbol. Lightning symbol macam tanda TNB tu kan. What it means basically is that those students who have internet connection problem. So when I want to force submission, okay, let me just show you. If I want to force submission, I will click here. Are you looking at my screen? Okay, you can see the red button over here, force submission. When you click force submission, this will pop out. Are you sure you wish to end the exam and force the student to submit? This applies to all students within this exam key. However, exceptions can be made. See below. So you can give exceptions. Choose which student is supposed to be given the exception. So those who had internet problems with the lightning symbol, the system will detect, okay, this student has internet problem. So it will inform you by showing the lightning symbol on the left side of the names. So you will choose, okay, this one should have more time. You can look at the time when he or she has internet problems. Then you proceed. The system will collect all answer script from everyone except for those students. Okay, for example, we can look at the individual setting. Let's say this particular student over here. Okay. Hang on, yeah. Okay, so if you also want to set timer, you can also click here to set the timer. Enter what time for the student, the duration for the exam. Okay, so this was what I was talking about just now. When you click the name of every student, it will tell you here on the right side what happened. So this student over here, Nolia Ibrahim, the exam was loaded at what time, on what date, it was finished and it was submitted. Okay, but for those students who have internet problem, it will appear here what time did they have internet problem, until what time. So you can look at the detail over there to decide how long should be given an extension of time for this particular student. Okay? Do you, Hasana, ada soalan tak?
Ada soalan, Doktor?
Tak ada soalan.
Ada. Good. Okay. So this is from previous quizzes punya. Actually not quizzes. Dr. Diana asked about Google Classroom. If the quiz in form of Word document posted in Google Classroom, will it be good for the test?
I do not understand the question. You mean, what? Okay, can Dr. Diana explain the question to me? Can you unmute your microphone?
Actually, I mean, if the question, we prepared question in a Word document form, we post it in Google Classroom, like quiz, like we have multiple choice and fill in the blank and so on. Is it possible to conduct online tests, quiz online based on that?
Meaning that you are asking not about using quizzes, but you're asking about using Word quiz on Word, Microsoft Word to be used as quiz online, is it?
Yes.
Okay, how do you wish to use it?
I prepared the question in Word document form, posted in Google Classroom, and students have to answer. Is it okay? Or have to follow the online, use any of the tools?
I'm not very sure about whether I'm not very sure whether I understand the question correctly. But I will answer. If this does not answer the question, you tell me. Okay. So if let's say you want to use quiz on Microsoft Word, so what you can do is we use another tool. So you just copy the whole thing from your Microsoft Word document. You use Google document in your Google Drive. So you copy paste the question in your Google Drive, in your Google documents in your Google Drive, and your students can answer the question over there. Meaning you don't have to do anything. Is that what you're looking for? Meaning you just want to use the whole thing as it is, as what has been prepared.
Yes.
That's one way of doing it. Or another way of doing it is for you to use Google Form. But this requires a bit more work. Meaning yang tadi tu, you can just copy paste the whole question that you have prepared and paste it on Google document. It's online, so they can just go to that Google document and they can answer the question over there. Okay, but you have to create different different answer sheet for everyone lah. Okay, if you want them to answer on that sheet itself. If you want them to just answer on any Google document, not on the question paper itself, then they can just do it on Google document and submit in your Google Drive. That's one thing. If you want to make it more interesting, still looks like a quiz, what you can do is you can save your Microsoft Word document in the form of an image, okay, but this requires a bit of work, and you can just upload it as image in Google Form. Let me just show you, yeah. Okay, this is an example of a Google Form quiz that I have for today's workshop actually, but if we have the time, we can do this. So basically, you can just use Google Form for quiz because Google Form has a quiz function. So you can use Google Form as a quiz, and among the things that you can do, apart from creating the questions and answers in the Google Form itself, what you can do is just to insert image. So if your question on the Microsoft Word is saved in JPEG format or PNG format, the image format lah, basically you can just upload one by one onto the Google Form platform. Okay, so those are the two things that you can do if you want to, if you want to do it that way lah. You want to have your questions yang dalam Microsoft Word tu.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mizan.
Any other questions, Sana?
Yes, from Dr. Shuhada Amin. Can I share the set of questions in my quizzes with other lecturers teaching the same subject?
Yes, you can.
Okay, one last question from Dr. Farha Abdullah. How ExamNet detects students cheat?
Okay, I will show you how to use exam.net, and as we go along, you will see the security functions that exam.net has. Okay, let me just show you this first. Okay, let's say you want to create a new exam. We go to exam.net first. Okay, this is, never mind. We'll go to new exam. Okay, new exam, the button is on top here. Click new exam. Okay, you can enter the exam name. Let's say you take simulation. Okay, exam questions can be in three formats. Okay, you either write the exam question. If you choose to write, you can just write your exam question, blah, 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 or like what Dr. Duriana was saying just now, if it's not a quiz, Dr. Duriana? Was it Dr. Diana, was it? Okay, so if it's not multiple choice or fill in the blanks, you call it a quiz, but it's actually short answer quiz. If you want to use exam.net, also can. You can just copy paste the whole exam questions and paste it here. Can. So this is if you choose to write the exam question. But if, let's say, for example, you, hang on, yeah. If you want to upload a PDF document, also can. Let me try to move this, okay? Because otherwise you will not be able to see the button at the bottom. I'm sorry for the black box in the middle now. Okay, all right. So if you look at the bottom, once you have written all your questions, you can click OK. Or if you do not want to use the right option, you can also use the PDF file. Let's say you want to add a PDF version of the question. So once you click this version, okay, you click this option, use the PDF version of the question, you can just click. It will bring you to the documents that you have in your laptop or your PC. So you can just choose any question or any examination questions to be uploaded. Okay. And then if you do not want digital exam questions at all, okay, maybe you have given the questions in WhatsApp. Okay, because I have friends who said that, okay, we want to give the questions to in WhatsApp, but they can answer here. They just want to use the answer sheet function in exam.net, not the question paper function. So you can just give them the question, but they come here to answer only. So you can choose this one. No digital exam questions. Okay. All right. Student information. The next thing after you have decided on the title of the exam and then the type of exam questions that you want to ask, you can also insert whatever requirements insert whatever details that you want the students to fill in when they answer the exam. Okay, maybe their first name, last name, email, class, teacher name, student ID. If you're doing team teaching, maybe teacher's name, because exam.net allows you to actually co-conduct the exam together with another teacher. Okay, so maybe you want them to put their teacher's name. And if you wish to anonymize the exam, it's also possible. Because remember that when you do exams in traditional exam halls, what happens is that the students will be writing their metric number on the front cover of the answer sheet. But you will not know who they are. Their names will not be written there. So if you want to choose that method, you can anonymize the exam. Just switch on the button. What happens when you switch on the button is this: the students will not be identified according to their name or their metric number. No, the system will come up with a different numbering ID. Okay, can somebody please switch off their microphone? I think we can hear you. And Hasana, can you just check? Okay, so please, when you click anonymize exam, it will make sure that the students will be identified by a number or an ID given by the system, not their student metric number even. Okay, so switch it on if you want that. Okay, and now you come to the student workspace to answer the question. So do you want them to have a place to write an answer? If you want them to have a place to write the answer, just write writing area, switch on. Okay, just choose to switch on the writing area, and you can limit the number of words. Okay, sometimes when you write online, students will actually use, students will write like 7-10 pages kan, because they can just write a lot. There's no limit in terms of the answer booklet that they can use. So you can limit the number of words, okay? If you want to include all these things also can, but I will not be going into it now. Spell check, scan handwritten solution. Okay, this is important for our students who have problems with their internet connection. If some students have internet connection problems, what they can do is they can handwrite their answer and switch on this function over here. If you switch on this function, which I did in your exam just now, you will find there's a button there. If you are not able to type your answer in exam.net, you can write your answer on a piece of paper and you can click that button in the workspace and a QR code will come out. The students basically will just use their normal smartphone with a QR code reader, normal QR code reader, and scan the code. The code will actually enable the students to snap a photo of the handwritten answer and it will automatically be uploaded under their name in the exam. So when you download the answer to mark, it will also be included that students' handwritten answer in the form of an image actually. Okay, so you can actually switch this on. You can explore all these other tools. Subject tools is what I said just now. If you want them to draw, Draw doesn't necessarily means draw as in like draw cartoons or pictures lah. It could also mean you want them to draw chart, for example, explain the procedure. So maybe you want them to draw chart, so you can switch on the drawing tool, okay? And maybe you want to add background image. Maybe you want to put a background image of a diagram, and they have to fill in the diagram. So you can just add background image and upload your own image. And if example, you want to have a calculator, you can switch on the calculator. Okay. Other things are not very relevant for law lah. And this is where you put in the statute just now. External resources. So what you can do is just add the external resource if you want them to refer to any external resource. Some statutes are even available online. So you can just give the URL and the students can just refer. It's allowed because it's actually incorporated into the workspace, not something that they search on their own. Okay, this is the security part that I was talking about just now. There are 3 levels of security that we can use for exam.net. The one that I was using just now was actually the lowest. Okay, if you want to have the best security, you can use high security mode, but I do not advise that because I've tried using this before. Some students have problems because when you use high security mode, not all devices can actually access the secure examination browser. It's in high security mode setting. So I just allow any browser, but once we choose the lowest level of security by allowing any browser, you will see that this thing will appear at the bottom. If we choose high security mode, the thing at the bottom doesn't appear. See, but we just allow any browser, this one will appear. What do you want the students to do if they try to so-called cheat? What I chose just now was require explanation and wait 30 seconds. So the students know that if they try to cheat, if they try to go somewhere else while the exam is going on, they will lose time. I tried this with Hasana's class. The first time I tried with them, everybody tried to refer to something else. So everybody lose time. So the second time that I do it, everybody knows what will happen, so nobody actually attempts. Just very minor number of students try to do this because they will lose. You can even increase the number, you know. You can say they lose 60 seconds, or you can put they can lose 90 seconds. Okay? Or you can just notify you, you want the system to notify you, but don't lock the student. You are a very kind, motherly lecturer who doesn't want to do this to your students. So you can actually just ask the system to notify you. Also, you know the student is trying to cheat lah, but don't lock the students, okay? Also can, or you just require explanation, but this is more strict. You require explanation and you manually unlock. So meaning that every time the students try to do this, all students who are unlocked, you have to manually unlock, okay? So this is also an option, okay? Or you feel that you don't care if they teach. Your question is at a very high level of Bloom Taxonomy. Kau nak tiru pun kau tiru lah, memang kau tak boleh meniru akhirnya. So you basically turn off cheat protection completely. I remember Dr. Majida used to give us question about apa benda entah in vitro, apa benda tu, sampai kita tak nak meniru langsung dulu kan. In vitro in international, Islamic criminal law. So you can't actually cheat. So by the end of the day, it depends on your question. So it depends on your answer, sorry. Then you just click create the exam. So once you create the exam, it will appear like this in your exam list. If you want to see how it looks like in the student's perspective, you can just click here, preview exam. Preview exam. Okay, let's say this one. Okay. Then it will come out as how it will look like in the student's answer sheet. So this is all the one that I was talking about. This is the scan solution for the students who have no internet not stable internet connection. So they just need to write on a piece of paper and they just the image will be uploaded. This is the teacher chat where they can ask question, and if they want to submit exam before the time is up, they can just click over here. The clock is here, the time. Okay. All right. So far, any questions that you want to ask?
We have questions from Dr. Muhammad Tahir.
Okay.
So if we accept handwritten answer, how it will be? Well,
it will just be an image. It will just be an image of I don't have a sample to show actually. It will just be an image of the handwritten answer on the paper. Meaning when the students click over here, scan solution, this will come out. So what they need to do is use their QR code reader to scan the QR code. Once they scan the QR code, they just bring their phone, use their camera and snap the answer. on the paper, and the answer will automatically be uploaded here under their name. If they want to refer to statute, they can click here, then they can see the statute. Okay, any other questions, Anna?
Dr. Safina and Dr. Farha asked, Dr. Safina and Dr. Aisha asked, how many questions can be inserted?
How many questions? There are no limit in terms of the number of questions. Okay, it's Azan, so I'm going to stop for a while. Okay, so this is exam.net. Any other questions? Because now it's already 1:16. After this, what I will do is basically I will just show other forms of assessment that you can do apart from exam, apart from quiz. Okay, quiz I've shown you two just now. One is by quizzes. Another one is just using Google form. Okay. Okay, and exam, I've shown you exam.net. Another one that I'm going to show you after this is just to use Google Drive and Google Document, but for the purpose of exam rather than assignment. I've shown you assignment right day before yesterday. Okay, any other questions, tak, Sana?
Ada, Doctor. Okay, basically, how many questions?
We'll take two first. Okay, how many questions? No limit in terms of the questions, but you can upload. You can write everything in the question section just now when you create the exam. So as long as you're writing there, all questions are there, then it's fine. Any other question?
How about grading the work submitted in ExamNet? How to grade it?
Grading is done manually. So basically, after the exam is finished, for example, let's say this is the exam. Let's say this is the exam. You want to grade it, you have to print it, or you have to download it. You can look at the options that you have over here. Let's say this is the exam. Okay, and these are the options. You want to print the exam, or you want to download Word files, or you want to download PDF. Say, for example, you want to download PDF. So you click download PDF. It will construct the PDF file for you. Okay. Okay. All right. So then you can just open the PDF document. Okay, kejap. I have to share another window because it appears in a different window. Okay, this is how it looks like. It looks like this. The name of the student will be written on top with the email and the teacher. These are the details that you ask for from them to actually fill in when they start the exam. Okay, and you have the word count as well. So this is the answer. So you basically you can mark it here online using track changes and whatever not. Or you can just print it and mark manually as how you mark a normal exam paper. Okay, any other question? Asana?
Yes, doctor. So from Dr. Tahir Sabit, can the student sign in to see the questions and then sign out to write their answer and then later sign in again so that they can scan their answers? I think this is when they use handwritten punya question answers code.
I don't understand the question. Macam mana? Sign in, sign out? No, once you sign out, then you will be blocked by the system yang tadi tu, the one that you put. If you try to move away from the workspace, it will stop you and you will be locked. If you don't give your reason, you'll be locked. Or you can choose even a stricter security level. So not signing out, even going to a different window will not be allowed actually. Okay, any other question?
How to save the answers in a file?
How to save answers in a file? It's like not any normal file. You have downloaded just now PDF or Microsoft Word document. Just save in your computer as any other Microsoft Word document file. Okay, anything else?
That's all for now.
Okay, that's all for now. Okay, so now I will be showing you another form of assessment that you can also do. It's a form of summative assessment as well. Okay, but in a different way. It's called e-portfolio. Okay, when you hear the word portfolio, you may think, oh, it sounds like architecture students, okay? Or maybe graphic design student. The concept is more or less the same, but the materials are different lah. For example, let me just show you, these are actually portfolios created by student. Okay, if you look at this student is actually IIUM student. This is not my student, it's another lecturer student. So they will create their own portfolio online. So how you do this is like this. Instead of asking them to sit for exam at the end of the semester, you basically ask them to create a portfolio which compiles all of their understanding of what they have learned for that particular semester. For example, let's look at okay, if you look at this particular student over here, okay, you can, this is a student from IIUM actually, but from the Faculty of Education. So you can see this is the name of the subjects, okay, and when you click, you can see the class diary and the assignment. So you can see all the assignments done by these students for that particular class. So you can also ask them to do a review. See, you can also ask them to do a weekly diary. A weekly diary is actually a reflection. From here, they will be they will be asked to actually explain what they have learned, okay, and in the form of a reflection. So see, this is our first class after a month with no class. However, our lecturer have assigned us blah 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 blah. So from here, you can actually also assess their understanding. But it's in a different way, because in exam it's more compelling. You have to do it. This is the exam. Now it's more on their own willingness. Okay, just tell me what you understood in the first week, in the second week, in the third week. So what you can do is you can ask them to do it on a weekly basis. Okay, like this. Okay, so you can see this student basically shares her reflection on a weekly basis of what she has learned. So this could also be a form of summative assessment. So basically, she is answering the question. She is explaining what she has learned, but in a different manner. I've used this for a different batch, not Hasana's batch, a different batch. So this is one method that you can use. Another one, since time is almost up, so I'm just going to show you options that you can use. Okay, another one is using Google Drive and Google Document. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and show you a different screen. Okay, let me just show you. Okay, hang on for a second. Okay, you can also use Google Document and Google Drive. Asana's batch and all the batches before her are quite familiar with what I'm going to show you. Is we do our pressure test assessment using Google Drive. I was actually in the hospital when this thing happened last semester. I control the exam remotely from the hospital. I was admitted for a few weeks. So the exam still go on, but it was conducted from far away lah. Okay, so this is the Google Drive. I created a separate Gmail account, a Google account for this purpose. Okay, and it's called the it's called the Pressure Test Assessment account. So basically, you can see in my Google Drive, all the folders here are for the purpose of exam. Okay, an example of this would be, let's look at the Pressure Test Assessment. So you can see these are all 129 students in my class. Okay, I conducted the exam in in the duration of 5 hours. So what they need to do is they have to access folder that I've prepared for them. For example, like this. Okay, I've prepared 18 folders for this first group, and then this is another 18. All right, so all these folders belong to different students, and when they go to their folder, they will see the questions. The rubric is here. The borang maklumat. Okay, this is the details where they put in their names, their matric number, and whatnot. Okay, and this is the instruction for the assignment. So when they go in, not the assignment, the assessment. So when they go into the folder that has been assigned to them, they will only see these three things over here. They have to fill up the detail form. They know that this is the rubric that will be used to assess them, and this is the instruction for the exam. And the fourth thing, sorry, not three, fourth thing is the question. So this is the question. So they'll be looking at the question, and the answers will be given in the form of answer sheet in Google document. So they will just, but this assessment was done to assess their ability to draft court documents. So they draft court documents and they submit here. So each folder belongs to different students. So what you need to do is, you have to make sure that once you have created the folders for each student, you just right click and make sure that you get the shareable link for that particular student, okay, to access the folder. Okay, and don't forget to change the setting of the sharing. Okay, let's say you want to make sure that anyone with the internet link can what? Can view only, can do what? Okay, let me just move the black box over here. Okay, so change this, okay, to editor. So meaning anybody who has the link can also edit. Edit means they can insert their answer lah. So done. How do you start and close the exam? What you basically need to do is, if you want to start the exam, you open. Let me just move this black box for a while. Okay. Okay, let's say you want to start the exam for all these 18 students, let's say, yeah. You just put your cursor at the end or here on top. Okay, oh, it's not working. Ah, yeah. Okay, like that. Let me try again. All right, like this. You want to start the exam. So just do this, and then you just go to, settings. Okay, sorry, not settings. You go to this one over here. Then you change the setting to, if you want to open the exam, yeah, you change it to this one, meaning it's anybody with the link can actually access the folder and do anything on it. But once the exam is closed, okay, once you open, anyone with the link, you allow this, you're done, meaning they can access the folder and start writing. You want to stop the exam, let's say now time is up. Okay, what you need to do is, once again, highlight the whole folder. Okay, right click, okay, go back to share and change it. Okay, change it to only restricted to only people who can add this link, or no, you change it to only those, only you yourself. Okay? Any question? Sasana, ada soalan tak?
No questions for now, Doctor.
Okay. Okay, if there are no questions, so you basically now have exam via exam.net, quiz via quizzes, Google form, or you can also opt for exam using, open book test using Google Drive and Google Document. But for the Google Drive and Google Document, what I did with my student was because it's a Google Drive and Google Document platform or tool, you don't actually have the security feature that you have in exam.net. So what you need to do is, you need to make sure your question is manipulated or designed in such a way that cheating is minimized. For my students, I basically design different set of questions, not scenario, different set of questions. Meaning the scenario might be the same for some students, meaning I created 10 scenarios for 129 students. But the thing that they have to do is different for each of the students. They might be reading the same scenario, but for this student, they have to draft a statement of claim and then whatever. Another student would have to maybe do a service, whatever. So different questions, but same scenario is possible. So once they do it, even if they were to actually discuss with each other, the questions or the things that they have to complete are not the same. So that's how I did it with my students using Google Drive and Google Document. Okay, any other questions that you want to ask?
Dr. Safina has a question. How do you assign the folders to the students? Using different...
Find it. I go to each of the folder just now as I was showing you. Let's say this is the folder. I right click, I get the shareable link, and I change the setting of sharing to anyone who has the link can actually can edit the document like this, for example. So now I copy the link. So what I do with the link is I will create a list like this. Let me just show you, yeah. I create a list like this. Yeah. So I create a list like this. This one is by firm. You can put the student's name over here, and this is the link. So the students know that, okay, this is my name and this is my workspace for the exam. So they will just open this particular link over here. The good thing about the exam using Google Document is, as what I have explained in the previous workshop, you can monitor the students by looking into the Google Document. Because remember, when you look at the Google Document like this, you can see the editing process, meaning anything done on the document can be seen on the right side. Okay, so make sure that your students log into their official university account, university Gmail account. Okay, and any changes that they do, it will be their names appearing here, like what you are seeing now on my screen. My name appears here because I access this Google document using my official account, not my Glamour nickname account. Okay, so you can just monitor the students like that. They will be doing the work. While they are doing it, you can see their progress by clicking here. Okay, any other question?
Got a question, Doctor. How do students provide their answer in Google Doc? Do they make a Google Doc and save in their folder? Thank you.
No, if you create a folder like that, what you need to do is just create a Google document for them to answer, also can. Or if you want to do it another way, like what I did just now, they can do it in their own Google document, which they share into that folder, also can. Let me just show you. For example, this one just now, right? So this one is the examination answer paper. The one that I showed you just now was actually a pressure test assessment folder where their task was basically to draft documents. So they cannot use Google document that I prepare for them. They would have to use their own document and they will upload it over there. But this is an example of I created the answer sheet for them. So once you create here, okay, this is the place where they have to fill in their name and their student number and the name of their lecturer. So this is the question, and they will just answer the question by you prepare a box for them, a space for them to answer the question. So they will just answer in the box that you provided. Does it answer the question? Okay, any other questions so far?
Yeah, from Dr. Norazla. What is the apps used for e-portfolio?
What is the what, sorry?
What is the apps used for e-portfolio?
What is the apps used? Okay, actually, the students are the one who has to use the apps. So it depends on you actually. Like just now I showed you the students, they are actually from Dr. Rosmaliza's class, okay? She's from UIA and she basically allows the student to choose any platform. and I think most of the students use Google Sites. Google Sites, yeah? Google Sites is actually, you can find Google Sites even when you click here in your Google account, the button here, right? Google Apps, you click here, you can find Google Sites as one of the apps listed here. You can find it here. Google Sites is one example, but for my students, I wanted them to use Wix. So Wix is another platform. There are many platforms to use actually. You can just tell your students they can use any platform as long as they give you the link. You can check periodically also that becomes a formative assessment, okay? Or you can make it into summative assessment. At the end of the semester, you will check everything, also can. So they will be the one who will be choosing the platform. If you are flexible, that could be the way. Okay, they can use Wix, W-I-X, Wix, like what I have showed you just now. Let me just go back to here. This is actually, I think this is Google site. Okay, my students use Wix. Okay, this is an example of my student's portfolio. Okay, so she uses Wix. These platforms are just drag and drop. It's not really, you don't have to know coding and whatnot to do this. It's just drag and drop and choosing background and whatever. Okay, any other question?
No, sir, for now.
Okay, all right. So that marks the end of today's workshop. So I do hope that the options that I've given can assist you to opt for other forms of assessment should traditional exam be something that is not something that you can do. Okay, so I wish you all the best. So this is the last workshop for you, but for me, I have similar workshops next week, but with different set of lecturers from different institutions. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, and we'll take a group photo for the last time. Okay, everybody please switch on your camera. Kak Syuk tu duduk mengiring kan?
Okay, I will snap the picture.
Okay. Dan? Wah, Syamshina. Lebarnya senyuman.
Okay, Dr. Dan.
Okay, Dan. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, promosi. Lagi si promosi here, Dr. Nurai, Dr. Zuraida, Kak Suzana.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mizan.
Thank you.
Terima kasih, Mizan.
Co-host, please stay back.
Thank you, Dr. Mizan.
Terima kasih. Thank you.
Okay, selamat raya
Thank you very much.
Everyone, thank you, Dr. Mizan.
Dr. Nur.
Open house.
Dr. Mizan, may Allah bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Prof. Nashima.
Dr. Mizan.
Bye, Kak Shana.
Thank you so much. Hi.
Co-host, sampai jangan lari, no. Postmortem.
Terima kasih, Dr.
Yeah, bye.
Assalamualaikum. Bye.
Bye. Bye.